Forge Master of Fuses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201 Caong. Caong didn't feel everyone's worry at all. He strode in front of the two girls, posed in what he thought was the most handsome posture, and said, "Hi, beautiful women." Tang Fan and Qin Yi looked at each other and exchanged glances. Who is this? I don't know where this idiot came from. I don't know him. I don't know him either. In this way, Xiao was successfully labeled as an unknown idiot by the two girls. Facing an idiot, the two girls didn't want to pay attention. Just as the music started, Tang Fan pulled Qin Yi and slid into the dance floor. As a person who has been a boy for 15 years, Tang Fan has good physical fitness and can dance well for men, completely beating more than 60% of the men present. Standing there, stunned, Caong looked more like an idiot at this moment. As the protagonist, Olivefield did not miss this scene. It seems that Caong is no match for Tang Fan. I'm afraid that the plan of being a hero and saving the beauty that he prepared in his heart will have to be slightly modified. Holding a wine glass, he walked towards Caong step by step, and said with a smile, "Brother Xiao, even if you don't give face to me as the host, you have to give face to the Marshal's mansion. We can't afford to offend anyone from the Marshal's mansion, even if she is just an adopted daughter." Caong didn't even glance at Olivefield, but instead pushed him because he blocked his view of the beauty. Olivefield took 2 steps back, inevitably a little embarrassed, but he soon picked up a smile. But that smile, no matter how you look at it, seems a little forced. Although Tang Fan and Qin Yi were dancing on the dance floor, they did not miss this scene. Qin Yi whispered, "Do you think he did it unintentionally or on purpose?" Although Qin Yi did not specify, Tang Fan immediately understood. Although his expression changed several times, his breathing was steady and there were no other changes. "I tend to think he did it on purpose." Qin Yi smiled. "Great minds think alike." "Then do you want to guess why he did this?" Tang Fan shook his head. "I can't guess. But it's definitely not because I'm good looking." Qin Yi laughed. "When animals court, they all show themselves to win the favor of the opposite sex. People are no exception. According to scientific statistics, the chance of beautiful people falling in love at first sight is much higher than that of people who are not so good looking. Maybe they just like your face." After hearing what Qin Yi said, Tang Fan couldn't help but shudder. "He likes my face, which is much more terrible than him likes my credit points." "Okay." Qin Yi glanced at her friend who was beautiful but didn't know it, and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "However, this is better than using beauty to commit crimes. Of course, this is also very likely the reason why Tang Fan is so popular." Okay. If you don't want to talk, we won't talk. But, what about the midnight snack? How about sweet and sour pork ribs and gourd chicken? Eating sweet and sour pork ribs and gourd chicken in the middle of the night. Qin Yi didn't feel sick of it. However, what can Tang Fan do when he needs help? Of course he nodded and said yes. It happened to be a break in the music, and Qin Yi immediately pulled Tang Fan's sleeve and walked towards the center of the crowd. While walking, he whispered, "Then let's hurry up. Finish the business as soon as possible and go back for midnight snack as soon as possible." Halfway through the walk, Tang Fan took the initiative, grabbed Qin Yi's hand, and dragged her to the fruit area on the side. "You can't make a deal if you rush. Don't worry, there are people who are more anxious than us." Before Qin Yi could figure it out, Tang Fan had already stuffed a crystal clear grape into her mouth. The sweet taste, without a trace of other impurities, was very much to Qin Yi's taste. Seeing that Tang Fan still had half a bunch in his hand, she immediately came over, one after another. It doesn't matter if there is no fish or shrimp, no full meal, or fruit. As a foodie, Qin Yi's attention will follow the food as long as there is food. Seeing Qin Yi lowering her head and only focusing on eating, Tang Fan couldn't help but smile and made an upward gesture to the waiter who was preparing food behind her. The temperature in the room rose inadvertently. There was no obvious trend of Olivefield's fragrance becoming stronger. Tang Fan twisted his fingers and felt quite regretful. It seems that if you want Olivefield to reveal his flaws, you have to find another way. Maybe that Caong can use it? But asking her to use the beauty trap on the obscene Caong, isn't this embarrassing for her? Tang Fan touched Qin Yi, who was eating happily, and whispered, Is there a way to make the two people in the middle have a violent physical conflict? Kenya was stunned when she heard this. Causing a physical conflict at the banquet? One of them is the host of the banquet. Tang Fan thinks too highly of her. Just as she was about to refuse, Tang Fan opened her mouth and said, 8 dishes and 1 soup for 1 meal. Kenya changed her words and said, deal. As the last disciple of Mr. Lee Bangsha, Kenya naturally had her own unique methods. She took out a bottle of perfume from her space buckle, tapped it on her wrist and behind her ear, and then tapped it for Tang Fan. Then she put the bottle away and said meaningfully, let's go and see the excitement. Tang Fan didn't know what medicine she bought in her gourd, but based on their friendship and understanding over the years, she nodded slowly. Kenya hadn't taken Tang Fan a few steps when Cao Wenji came over and said, hello, Miss Tang. I am Cao Wenji, the eldest son of the Cao Sun family in the Ministry of Finance. It's our first meeting, please take care of me. Looking at Cao Wenji's hand that was stretched out, Tang Fan narrowed his eyes, stretched out his hand and touched it slightly, and then retracted it. That action was so quick that it was surprising. Tang Fan's attitude of rejection towards Cao Wenji was so obvious that it couldn't be more obvious, and it could even be called disgust. This made Cao Wenji very angry, and his chest could not help but rise and fall rapidly. This classmate Cao's self-control was far inferior to that of the greasy-haired Olifield, but he was just disdained by Tang Fan for a while, so he lost face. You came to the banquet eagerly, don't you just want to rely on the marshal's mansion and your face to find a long-term meal ticket? Why are you pretending to be pure in front of me? I call you Miss Tang for the sake of the marshal's mansion. If you get angry, I will kill you today. At most, I can have an extra pair of chopsticks and bowls at home. Tang Fan glanced at Cao Wenji and sneered, my young master. With your useless physique of B-level physical strength and C-level mental strength, it will be difficult for you to kill me. But it will be easier for me to cripple you. At most, I will pay for medical expenses for 150 years. I don't have anything else, but I have more credit points. You can try it. Speaking of which, Tang Fan, has never lost when it comes to making harsh words. Chapter 202 S-Class. Relying on the motto my father is Cao Sun, Cao Wenji has been in the martial arts world for so many years and has never tasted defeat. Today, he suddenly kicked a piece of iron plate, and his physical and mental strength levels were ridiculed. How could Cao Wenji tolerate such a thing? In a moment of impulse, his fist hit Tang Fan's pretty face. Although he was wearing a dress, it did not have much impact on Tang Fan. He dodged the punch with a left dodge, but his slender fingers firmly grasped Cao Wenji's wrist in the next second, and threw Cao Wenji to the ground with an over-the-shoulder throw. In the banquet hall, the screams of the ladies immediately rang out. After a while, the area around Tang Fan was cleared. In addition to the parties involved, Tang Fan and Cao Wenji, there were only Qin Yi, who was watching the fun and no matter what, and Olifield, the host of the banquet. Tang Fan glanced at her dress, snorted, tore off half of the hem, threw it at Cao Wenji's face, and sneered, do you want to continue? I don't know what Qin Yi painted on Tang Fan's wrist. Tang Fan just rubbed a little when tearing the hem of the dress, and threw it on Cao Wenji. Cao Wenji's attitude changed 3 times. From confusion, to anger, and then to rushing towards Tang Fan with red eyes. It took only a few seconds. Tang Fan worked hard to attend a banquet, not to find a sandbag to play with. Cao Wenji's physical fitness is far inferior to Tang Fan, not to mention that he learned a fancy trick, which is completely incomparable to Tang Fan who has practiced in actual combat. Tang Fan deliberately provoked, and the war gradually burned to Olifield's side. Although he knew that Tang Fan was doing it on purpose, as the host of the banquet, in full view of the public, the fight had come to him, and Olifield had to stand up to mediate. Tang Fan was easy to deal with. She was wearing a dress, even if it was half torn, so her movements were somewhat restricted. When Olifield stepped out to mediate, she immediately switched from offense to defense and hid whenever she could. On the contrary, Cao Wenji became more and more courageous. Olifield said a lot of good and bad things, but he didn't give him any face. Before Olifield tried to stop the fight, most of his punches were directed at Tang Fan. After Olifield tried to stop the fight, most of his punches were directed at him. Olifield talked until his mouth was dry, but Cao Wenji ignored all his words. As time went by, Olifield's restraint was gradually disintegrating. Smelling the increasingly strong perfume around her, Tang Fan blinked at Qin Yi. Qin Yi looked at the three people who formed a situation of eagle catching chickens, and nodded with a forced smile. For Qin Yi, storing a little bit of air and analyzing it was just a matter of pressing the space button and clicking a few times on the light brain. In a group of guests who were busy recording and sharing, he was not only inconspicuous, but also appeared very polite. Fists and feet have no eyes, even for Chicken Tang Fan and Hen Olivefield. Physical contact is inevitable. That's why, when Tang Fan's fist brushed Olivefield's cheek, Tang Fan clearly felt that the fragrance around him became stronger again. The fragrance did not completely take away Tang Fan's attention, but the touch of her hand almost made her lose her mind. She actually felt the coldness of metal from Olivefield's face. As a battle-hardened mecha foundry, she was too familiar with this feeling and it was definitely not wrong. Tang Fan tightened his fists and distanced himself from the two men. The famous scene of the eagle-catching chickens immediately turned into a men's doubles. Tang Fan, who had already withdrawn, immediately made a new discovery from the perspective of a bystander. Although he tried his best to suppress his primordial power, after her fist brushed his cheek, Xiao Wenji had already shown signs of defeat in just 3 moves. This meant that Olivefield was not as incompetent as he appeared to be. His mental strength level was indeed not high, probably about the same as Xiao Wenji. But his physical strength may have been above hers. Her physical and mental strength were infinitely close to S level. That is to say, Olivefield, who had just reached adulthood, was already a master with physical strength above S level. This discovery made Tang Fan feel a little more uneasy. The more he knew, the more he feared the Field family. After dragging on for more than 20 moves, Olivefield finally knocked Xiao Wenji to the ground and ended the battle. Looking at Xiao Wenji, who was curled up on the ground and sweating in pain, Tang Fan estimated the strength of Olivefield's last punch and pursed his lips. Olivefield seemed to realize that he had hit too hard and quickly waved his hand. After a while, 2 servants who were unfamiliar to Tang Fan carried Xiao Wenji away. Whether he was taken for treatment or to do something else, that was not a problem that Tang Fan should intervene in. As long as Olivefield still remembered that Xiao Wenji's father was Xiao Sun, Xiao Wenji should be able to see the sun of the capital star tomorrow. Although Xiao Wenji was taken away, everyone's interest was gone. Olivefield, as the host of the banquet, apologized to everyone sincerely, and the banquet ended in a whimper. As the culprit who disturbed everyone's interest, Tang Fan also took the initiative to apologize to everyone. In order to express his sincerity, Tang Fan said, all the guests present will receive a 10% discount on the purchase of Tang's mecha. This sincerity was deeply felt by all the guests except Olivefield, the host of the banquet. Olivefield was very emotional about Tang Fan's behavior of taking the initiative. Tang Fan could smell this from the strong perfume on his body. Qin Yi, who was not far away, gestured to Tang Fan after seeing the 10th set of analysis data appear in full. Tang Fan stopped his provocation and pulled Qin Yi away from the Field family as if fleeing. The world is big, but eating is the most important. After fulfilling the midnight snack promise to Qin Yi, Tang Fan finally got Qin Yi's first-hand analysis data. Unfortunately, as a non-professional, Tang Fan couldn't understand any of the data. Qin Yi extorted 2 more meals from her, and then took the data and translated it word by word for Tang Fan. Qin Yi didn't care too much at first, but the more she read, the more familiar it seemed, and the more she read, the more wrong it seemed. Qin Yi suddenly stopped halfway through explaining the first set of data. She quickly browsed through the 10 sets of data, and the more she read, the more frightened she became. In the dining room of the Marshal's mansion, which was the most suitable temperature for humans, Qin Yi broke out in a cold sweat. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203. Qin Yi didn't even have time to explain to Tang Fan. She immediately sent the data to Mr. Li Bangsha and then made a video call. When the call was connected, Qin Yi didn't even notice the displeasure of Mr. Li Bangsha on the other side of the video, and hurriedly said, "Teacher, please take a look at this set of data." Mr. Li Bangsha was interrupted when he was halfway through the experiment, and he was inevitably a little emotional. After seeing the data sent by Qin Yi, he became even more angry. "You are having too much fun outside, right? A study of the gas of stink bugs can make you excited enough to send me a video request? If you are bored, come back and do the experiment. I will give you as many stink bugs as you want. If you don't study it out, I will see how I will deal with you. Mr. Lee Banksh's roar confirmed Qin Yi's guess in his heart. Although the truth that the stench of stink bugs at a certain concentration equals the smell of some unknown perfume is a little hard to accept. But excluding all the impossible, the remaining one, even if it is impossible, is the truth. You have to accept it even if you don't want to. Before Qin Yi could react, Tang Fan hurriedly asked another question. Grandpa, what kind of mutant has a metallic feel on its head? Although this question was very unprofessional, Tang Fan was the funder of the research room and not a member of the research team. No matter how unprofessional the question was, Grandpa Lee Bankshi could only tolerate it. As far as I know, there are only two types of mutants with a metallic feel on their heads. One is the thick-headed worm, which is relatively rare. The other is the more common sheath beetle. There is also a mutant with a metallic feel all over its body, the thorny mountain beetle. You are a researcher of mechas and starships, why are you asking this for no reason? Tang Fan frowned and said in a deep voice, there are no stink bugs on the capital star. The data Qin Yi gave you were all collected at the banquet tonight. The concentration of the smell varies slightly due to the high and low emotions, but they all come from the same sample. The anger on Grandpa Lee Banksh's face disappeared without a trace, and only surprise remained in his small eyes. You mean, this is a sample, all from? Qin Yi hurriedly nodded and admitted it without waiting for Grandpa Lee Bankshi to finish. The Star Network is not safe. They can get the research results from the special research team of the Alliance, and there is no guarantee that others can also get some information from their conversation. Don't mention the names if you can. It's better to be safe than sorry. Grandpa Lee Bankshi immediately understood and asked, the one with the metallic feeling on the head, is it him? Tang Fan nodded, I don't know much about mutant creatures, but I have done some research on metals. Although it was just a touch, I can be sure that the touch is definitely not a metal mask. Grandpa Lee Bankshi couldn't help but squint his eyes after hearing this. Then you two wait on the capital star, I'll come over as soon as possible. Tang Fan shook his head, we have no evidence, the Field family won't admit it. Old Master Lee Bankshi laughed, who said I came to the capital star just to see him? Don't forget, the two naughty kids who were in danger in the Gamma Star Field are still not awake. Marshal Song has been so busy recently, and he's about to ask for armaments again. I have to reduce Marshal Song's burden. After saying that, Old Master Lee Bankshi didn't forget to wink at Tang Fan mischievously. Tang Fan looked at Old Master Lee Bankshi and knew that things were not as simple as Old Master Lee Bankshi said. However, even Qin Yi knew that the Star Network was not a good place to talk. Tang Fan, who had seen Lauer's magical operation, naturally would not put his curiosity on the surface. Then I will welcome you on the capital star. Old Master Lee Bankshi laughed, hung up the video, and turned around to continue doing experiments. After all, he had to finish the work at hand before he could go to the capital planet to meet up with the two girls, right? Every generation has its own talented people, and each has been the leader for hundreds of years. It had only been a short time since he last visited the capital planet, and the capital planet had changed. Olive Field, right? If there was a chance, he would definitely meet him. In fact, Mr. Lee Bankshi didn't wait too long for this opportunity. He had just set foot on the land of the capital planet and had not yet walked out of the port when he smelled a special smell. This smell happened to be the lightest one among the 10 samples that Qin Yi had sent him when he was aboard on the starship. As expected, Olive Field was also at this port. Mr. Lee Bankshi immediately became excited and looked in the direction where the smell came from. A boy who was nearly 2 meters tall, thin, and had a greasy face and powdered hair came into Mr. Lee Bankshi's sight. With just one glance, Mr. Lee Bankshi eliminated the two options of thick-headed beetles and thorny mountain beetles in his mind, and the shadow of sheath beetles emerged in his mind. That's right. Anna Smith's research object is also sheath beetles. Olive Field could not be Anna Smith's masterpiece. Countless thoughts flashed through Mr. Lee Bankshi's mind, but his feet did not stop. He just quietly added Anna Smith to the discussion topic. Mr. Lee Bankshi was ostensibly here to treat the two naughty children, so the food, clothing, housing and transportation were naturally borne by the parents of the two naughty children. The aircraft first sent Mr. Lee Bankshi to a hotel near the hospital. After Mr. Lee Bankshi had a short rest, he couldn't wait to welcome him to the hospital. It was 3 days later when Mr. Lee Bankshi finally found time. Song Yuanxi and Song Si were not at home. Most of the marshal's mansion was female. Mr. Li Bangsha was embarrassed to visit them rashly, so he could only ask Tang Fan and Qin Yi to meet. Talking outside is not necessarily safer than on the Star Network. Tang Fan thought again and again, and simply made an appointment with the Grandpa Li Bangsha to meet in a park near the hospital. Such an open place is more difficult to monitor than a closed environment. Even if someone follows behind, they can't get in. Watching them meet from afar, but not knowing what they said, this feeling is probably more uncomfortable than knowing nothing. Grandpa Li Bangsha gladly accepted Tang Fan's arrangement. The capital Star is like spring all year round, and the park next to the hospital is always full of flowers and beautiful. Seeing that the weather was still good, Grandpa Li Bangsha simply walked to Tang Fan's appointment. As a pharmacist, Grandpa Li Bangsha's physical strength is average, but his mental strength is strong enough. Compared with ordinary people, he is naturally more sensitive. After only a few steps, the old man found that there were a few followers following him. The old man saw through it but didn't make a fuss. He stood honestly at the entrance of the park, waiting for his sponsor and apprentice to arrive. Chapter 204 Straightforward. Tang Fan possesses all the qualities that a successful businessman should have, including being punctual. Old Master Li Bangsha only waited for a few minutes before he saw Tang Fan and Qin Yi coming together. There were no fewer people following them than he did. As soon as Qin Yi saw Old Master Li Bangsha, she immediately abandoned Tang Fan and ran to the Old Master, actively reporting her learning progress, fearing that the Old Master would criticize her. Tang Fan couldn't help laughing. She walked forward and bowed gently. Old Master Li Bangsha patted Qin Yi's hand, stopped Qin Yi from talking, and took the lead to walk towards the highest hill in the park. When the weather is clear, it is indeed a rare pleasure to climb high and look far. Tang Fan and Qin Yi enjoyed it very much, but the group of people who followed them didn't enjoy it so much. The higher you go, the fewer people there are, and the harder it is to follow. Seeing the distance getting farther and farther, until they could no longer hear their conversation, the three of them found a place and sat down. Seeing the three people looking down from above, pointing out the mountains and rivers, and writing inspiring words, I don't know how many people gave up and gnashed their teeth. It was not until this time that the three people on the high ground officially got to the point. Old Master Li Bangsha spoke first. When I was leaving the port, I met Mr. Field. Among the three suspects, I prefer the sheath beetle. First, it has strong reproductive ability and strong tolerance. Second, it is also the research object of Anna Smith. Third, the image is more consistent. Tang Fan tapped his palm. Then what the old man means is that it is necessary for us to get the images of the other Mr. Fields. Old Master Li Bangsha laughed. We can meet the one from the capital Star by chance. Tang Fan immediately took on the task. I'll arrange it. Old Master Li Bangsha continued. Each mutant creature has its own weaknesses. The weaknesses of the sheath beetle are the eyes and the relatively weak abdomen. The weakness of the stink bug is that it is afraid of water. You can give it a try. Tang Fan curled his lips. Olive Field has been on the capital Star for so many years, it is not difficult to investigate what his preferences and taboos are. Old Master Li Bangsha frowned. Hearsay is not advisable. Tang Fan sighed. Okay, I'll try my best to try it myself. Old Master Li Bangsha silently swallowed a long speech that was about to come to his mouth, and asked the last question. There has been no news about Anna Smith for a long time, and her genius nephew named Titan has also lost his whereabouts. This is not like Anna Smith's style. I suspect that something is wrong with her nephew, and it is very likely a genetic problem. If my suspicion is true, we can use this as a breakthrough. Tang Fan trembled all over. How could she forget Anna Smith? That was her cheap aunt, the last person her mother contacted when she was awake, and the #1 enemy on her father's blacklist. Ask my father about this matter. I should be able to find out something. Old Master Li Bangsha thought of how much Tang Gang valued Anna Smith. If he really wanted to know about Anna, asking Tang Gang was really a good idea. Then I will wait for good news. Tang Fan nodded. I will do the work. Don't worry, old man. After finishing the business, the three of them also rested for a while. Not wanting to waste the good weather, the three of them continued to climb the stairs, looking far into the distance, admiring the flowers and chatting, having a great time. It seemed as if they were just out for fun. 2 hours later, the three of them finally had enough fun. The two girls sent Old Man Li Bangsha back to the hospital and went directly back to the marshal's mansion. Then, They never came out again. Because Tang Fan only mentioned it to her father, and Tang Gang took over all the things. It only takes more than 30 hours to get from the Gamma Star region to the capital star. In addition to short distance jumps and speeding, it only took Tang Gang 1 day and 1 night to reach the capital star. Just 1 day and 1 night was enough for Tang Gang to spread the net and complete the tasks assigned by Old Man Li Bangsha, and do something else by the way. After all, there was a difference of more than 20 years, and Tang Gang was much more meticulous than Tang Fan. Email Field, the holographic image of Barton Field was first transmitted to Old Man Li Bangsha. The images of the two Mr. Fields were very different. Email Field had a big belly and the temperament of a nouveau riche, while Barton Field was as thin as Olive Field. However, unlike Olive Field, Barton did not wear makeup all year round. But no matter which Mr. Field, they all had one thing in common: their mental strength was average, but their physical strength was very good. Except for Emil, who was doing business and maintained it A level, everyone else was in the S level. Including Mr. Poundfield, who had no holographic image and was waiting for a chance encounter. Thinking about the genius baby created by Anna Smith, Li Bangsha had reason to suspect that this special physique came from an improper source. Tang Gang got off the starship and took a flying vehicle to the hospital to pick up Mr. Li Bangsha and rushed to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Under the pretext of seeking justice for Tang Fan, he went straight to Poundfield. Tang Gang's brutal operation shocked Mr. Li Bangsha. But it must be said that it was very effective. Tang Gang was shameless, but Poundfield, who worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, valued his image the most and could not be shameless. Tang Gang shouted at the door of his unit, and Poundfield could not take it lightly, and immediately stood up. With just one glance, Old Man Li Bangsha was sure that Mr. Poundfield and Mr. Bartonfield had similar genes. Tang Gang picked a good angle and stood at an angle where Old Man Li Bangsha in the aircraft could see him clearly. When Poundfield walked in front of him, Tang Gang unexpectedly aimed at Pound's abdomen and punched him. The force of this punch was not small. Poundfield was beaten back 2 steps and sweated profusely. Tang Gang retracted his fist and said coldly, "If a son is not taught, it is the fault of the father. Take care of your son, otherwise, I will beat you again next time. Next time, it will be more than just this one punch." After saying that, he jumped on the aircraft and left. Such rampant behavior stunned Poundfield and made him forget to fight back. However, he was not the worst. The worst was Cao Wenji, who liked to say "my father is Cao soon." After being beaten by Olifield, he had just recovered from his injuries and hadn't even had time to show off. He was beaten by Tang Gang and sent back to the hospital. Moreover, Tang Gang was more ruthless than Olifield. Olifield would throw people into the medical cabin. But Tang Gang, after beating them, would leave. He was only responsible for beating, not medical treatment. Chapter 205 Luzi Hi. After beating someone, Tang Gang wiped his hands and threw the white towel at Cao Wenji. This provocative behavior at the doorstep of someone's home successfully established Tang Gang's image of being straightforward in front of the people of the capital star. He hid his character of taking 1 step and calculating 3 steps at a time. The goal was achieved, and Tang Gang returned to the aircraft leisurely. He smiled at Mr. Li Bangsha. "I have been acting for so long, did you see it clearly?" Mr. Li Bangsha raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Whether you are acting or taking revenge, you know it in your heart. You can fool others, but it's meaningless to fool me." Tang Gang laughed at Mr. Li Bangsha. "Nothing can be hidden from your eyes. However, whether I have taken revenge is not important at all. The important thing is, have you figured out anything?" Mr. Li Bangsha nodded. Mr. Poundfield and Mr. Bartonfield are similar in body shape, and their genetic similarity should be relatively high. Mr. Bartonfield should also have similar genes. The only special one is Mr. Emil Field, who is quite different from the other people in the Field family. Tang Gang knocked on the back of the chair and sneered. The Field family once officially stated that Mr. Emil Field's mother is Zio. However, the hostess of the Field family seems to have bad luck. The Field family has so many relatives, friends, and neighbors, but no one has ever seen Mr. Emil Field's mother. Old Master Li Bangsha said indifferently, "I know that. But I think not everyone has never seen Mr. Field's wife." Tang Gang's hand suddenly paused, and he looked at Old Master Li Bangsha in disbelief. "What are you saying?" Old Master Li Bangsha nodded. "In my opinion, Mr. Field's beloved disciple, Miss Anna Smith, should have seen it. Otherwise, this kind of thing would not have happened to your sister and Zhang Awei." Tang Gang sucked his teeth. What you said does make some sense. However, Anna Smith's scheming should not be underestimated. Since she hurried back from the Little Bear Star region, she only went to the Zhang family once and took away the Titan. The rest of the time, she stayed in her house without moving a step. Old Master Li Bangsha frowned. That's why I'm more worried. Tang Gang arched his hands. I'd like to hear more about it. Old Master Li Bangsha asked back. When did Pound Field break through to the S level? Tang Gang, 48 years old. Old Master Li Bangsha asked again. What about Barton Field? Tang Gang, 42 years old. Old Master Li Bangsha said slowly. Your Affin told me that Olive Field, who was 32 years old at the time, was already an S-level master in physical strength. Tang Gang narrowed his eyes. Then what? Old Master Li Bangsha rubbed his temples and simply said it more directly. Although the talents of the Field family seem to be getting stronger and stronger, they are not without drawbacks. Tang Gang narrowed his eyes and finally came to his senses. As their talents become stronger, their genetic defects are also getting bigger, and they will even be clearly manifested. Old Master Li Bangsha nodded and said nothing. But Tang Gang had already understood. In that case, as a genius baby, the genetic defect of that Titan should be more obvious than that of Olive Field. And the reason why Anna Smith hurried back from the Little Bear Star region is probably because of this Titan. Old Master Li Bangsha applauded and said approvingly. As expected of the Tang Fox, you turned around so quickly. Anna Smith is your Tang family's nemesis, you can't just ignore her. Tell me. What did you find there? Tang Gang quickly recalled, nodded, and dragged out a neatly organized shopping list from his space buckle. Anna Smith stayed at home and bought everything on the Star Network. Perhaps in order to conceal her tracks and reveal some clues, she would separate her shopping into countless lists every time, which seemed illogical. I hope that this thing can play its greatest role in your hands. Old Master Li Bangsha took the shopping list and read it slowly. At the beginning, it was indeed as illogical as Tang Gang said. But when he saw the latter part, especially the shopping list for the last half year, Mr. Li Bangsha smiled. He took out a pen from the space buckle, ticked something on the list, then turned on his optical computer and started to calculate quickly. When the optical computer finally stopped working, Mr. Li Bangsha slowly closed his eyes. Although he had expected it, when the tragedy really happened in front of him, as a pharmacist, Mr. Li Bangsha still couldn't help but feel sorry for the child named Titan. After a long while, he spoke. The child named Titan not only has genetic problems, but also quite serious ones. Although Tang Gang was not a compassionate person, he felt uncomfortable when he suddenly heard about this. I'll arrange for someone to meet Anna Smith and take a look at the child. Old Master Li Bangsha suddenly opened his eyes and warned, be careful. Even if you can't get evidence, don't alert the enemy. Tang Gang nodded. I know. The aircraft passed through most of the capital planet and stopped steadily in the parking lot of the hotel where Old Master Li Bangsha lived. Old Master Li Bangsha walked into the elevator without looking back, while Tang Gang stayed for a while before going to the front desk to check in. However, he had just checked into the hotel when he received a notice of assistance in the investigation from the Capital Star Security Bureau. Tang Gang looked at the very polite notice and was full of distrust for every word on it. The Capital Star Security Bureau took action so quickly. It must be no pushover. Or perhaps, he underestimated the Field family and Mr. Xiao Zunkeo, who had been deceived by his son for a long time. Before the Public Security Bureau came to request assistance in the investigation, Tang Gang arranged the task of investigating Anna Smith and Titan in an orderly manner. As for the results of the investigation, Tang Gang asked them to contact Tang Fan directly. Then, he simply turned off the light computer and walked into the bathroom. When the people from the Public Security Bureau kicked open Tang Gang's door, the sound of dripping water had not stopped. Tang Gang washed slowly for half an hour, feeling that his skin was about to be rubbed off, and then he came out with a bath towel wrapped around him. Then, he looked at the people in his room with surprise and raised his eyebrows. Sir, can you tell me what happened? Chapter 206 Assisting in the Investigation. Looking at the computer that had been turned off on the bed, and then at Tang Fan who was half-dressed and obviously pretending to be stupid, the leader in her De Bruin couldn't help but twitch his lips. Mr. Tang Gang, you are suspected of 2 street fights. Please assist our Public Security Bureau in accepting the investigation. You have the right to remain silent, as every word you say will become evidence in court. Tang Gang looked at the shaky door, then at the towel on his body, and then at the wet protective clothing in the bathroom, and raised his eyebrows. It's not appropriate to go out like this. In her De Bruin's face, which was not white to begin with, was even darker at this moment. Give him a protective suit. Tang Gang was not grateful for the friendly sponsorship of protective suits. Instead, he took advantage of the situation and made a request. I am a bit of a germaphobe. I only wear new protective suits, and they have to be white. I wear size XL, don't take the wrong one. The miserable police officer who was looking for protective suits for him almost tripped over his right foot and fell flat on his face after hearing his overreaching words. It was not easy to find a protective suit that met Tang Gang's requirements and handed it over. But Tang Gang had no self-awareness at all. He didn't wear the protective suit after getting it, but turned it up and down, and even got close to smell it. He hadn't completed the task, but he had already folded a protective suit, and he had to be picked and chosen. Deborah's face was not very good. Fortunately, Tang Gang only checked it and made sure there was no problem, so he took the clothes into the bathroom. 2 minutes later, Tang Gang came out wiping his hair, with no intention of leaving at all. Deborah couldn't help but remind him, Mr. Tang, you're dressed now, isn't it time to leave? Tang Gang pointed at the hotel door and refused to budge. This door doesn't look cheap. Before you leave, don't you have to solve this matter? Violent law enforcement is not a good reputation. Deborah's face suddenly turned darker than ink. Because the door half hanging on the wall was broken by his kick. But can he bear Tang Gang's accusation, or threat? Of course, no. The scene suddenly became awkward. After a long while, Deborah gnashed his teeth and said, isn't it just a door? Arwoo, you stay and clean up the mess. Mr. Tang, can you leave now? Tang Gang ignored him and went to the hotel manager and dragged him in front of Deborah. I am afraid of trouble and I can't keep things in my heart. This gentleman brought people to destroy your front door. If there's anything, you can solve it yourself. After that, I can also cooperate with the Public Security Bureau to accept the investigation, right? Seeing Tang Gang's look that he would not leave until the problem was solved, Deborah's teeth itched. Tell me, how do you plan to solve this matter? The manager was no stranger to Deborah. 50% of the doors in their hotel had been kicked by him. However, when such things happened, customers would honestly cooperate with the investigation and the hotel would consciously put the bill on the customer. Now, Deborah actually took the initiative to discuss the issue of compensation, and he was a little panicked. Seeing that the manager didn't say anything, Tang Gang didn't panic either. He turned on the optical computer, called up the hotel's compensation list, and read it out word by word. Every time Tang Gang read a sentence, the manager broke out in a cold sweat. Before Tang Gang could read the part about the door, the manager gritted his teeth and said, doors are used to protect against gentlemen but not villains. It's okay as long as it can be used normally. I think this door is not completely unusable. Just fix it. Tang Gang raised his head from the optical computer and asked, just fix it. The manager nodded hurriedly. Deborah's face looked better. Arwoo, did you hear that? A short man immediately walked out from behind Deborah, looked at Tang Gang deeply, then slowly took out a bunch of tools from the space buckle and carefully repaired the door. After a while, the door was repaired. Under Tang Gang's reminder, the manager reluctantly opened and closed the door, and hurriedly said that the door had been repaired. Tang Gang then followed Deborah with some regret. As soon as the group walked to the gate of the Public Security Bureau, Tang Gang's optical computer rang at the right time. Tang Gang answered the call directly in front of Deborah, and Ms. Yao's highly recognizable face immediately appeared in the optical computer. Before Tang Gang could speak, Ms. Yao made a righteous condemnation of Tang Gang for staying in a hotel after arriving at the capital star. Tang Gang humbly accepted the criticism and education, and said a few words about family matters, mostly about Tang Fan. Deborah was full of anger and felt anxious, but he couldn't say anything. Seeing that the topic was getting further and further away, Deborah couldn't help but coughed. The cough made Ms. Yao frown. Where are you? Tang Gang laughed dryly and pointed the video camera at the Public Security Bureau not far away. An unknown police officer said that I was suspected of 2 street fights and asked me to assist them in the investigation, Ms. Yao said with a sneer. An unknown police officer? So, the Public Security Bureau can ask people to assist in the investigation without showing their ID and arrest warrant? This is the first time I know this. I have to ask their director for advice when I have time. Otherwise, this matter will fall on my head that day and I will be passive. These words were light, but they made Deborah and others sweat. Tang Gang suddenly realized it, sat down on the steps of the Public Security Bureau, and reached out to them for their ID and arrest warrant. The video was not hung up. Looking at Ms. Yado's face in the light brain, which said wait and see the show, in her Debru's expression was extremely ugly. He gritted his teeth and showed his ID, but he didn't have an arrest warrant. Tang Fan was not in a hurry, so he sat on the steps and confronted him silently. The scene was very awkward for a while. Of course, it was also very eye-catching. In her Debru had offended many people. I don't know which one of them took a picture of this scene and posted it on Starnet. In the interstellar era of free speech, In her Debru became famous overnight. The masters are among the people. In her Debru's life story was posted on Starnet at the first time. In conjunction, the whole process of Tang Fan being invited to the Public Security Bureau was also posted. This matter escalated in an instant. The Public Security Bureau was pushed to the forefront in an instant. In her Debru became a cyber troll because of his unique law enforcement behavior. The 4 words assisting in the investigation suddenly had a different flavor. Chapter 207 Result. Fighting in the street is not a big deal. Even if Tang Fan committed the crime in front of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, there is video evidence. According to the laws of the Alliance, it is only a matter of detention for a few days. What's more, there is a reason for the incident. Therefore, public opinion is inevitably one-sided. Tang Fan became the object of sympathy of the general public. In order not to arouse public anger, the CAO family and the Field family actively stood up and said that they had failed to educate their children and were ashamed to file a complaint. The parties did not file a complaint, but an officer in her Debru of the Public Security Bureau violently enforced a law without an arrest warrant. The water in this is too deep. The vast majority of people are not short of imagination. As soon as the CAO family and the Field family issued a statement, many different versions of the story spread within the alliance. Those stories are much more exciting than what Tang Fan, the party involved, experienced. Tang Fan directly doubted his life after hearing them. How could he not know that his life was so miserable? How could a dignified Legion commander, a person who has the final say in the Gamma Star region, be treated like a pitiful little person who can be bullied by everyone in the mouths of these people? Since the day when the internet was invented, keyboard warriors have come into being. People who are at a disadvantage will always receive more sympathy. Now, Tang Fan is that poor person. Although he himself does not think so. But the angry keyboard warriors still have no choice to help him to capture the Public Security Bureau and the official websites of several related units, and posted the ironclad evidence of in her Debru's many violent law enforcement since he took office. And strongly expressed their demands, to publish the results of the investigation into in her Debru's violent law enforcement and severely punish the violent law enforcement element in her Debru. Tang Fan, as a fuse, finally triggered a major earthquake in the Public Security Bureau. As the protagonist of this incident, in her Debru is now kneeling in front of Joe Taylor, the director of the Capital Star Public Security Bureau, deeply repenting his sins. He didn't expect that he would step into a hornet's nest just by accepting a little benefit from CAO soon and dealing with a colonel from the marginal star field. Didn't he just fail to apply for an arrest warrant according to the procedure? Wouldn't it be fine if he just issued a new one? In her Debru hugged Joe Taylor's thigh and begged bitterly, "Uncle, you must have a way. Just issue a new arrest warrant." Joe Taylor looked at the paralyzed official website, and then at his nephew who was kneeling in front of him, not knowing how much trouble he had caused, and sighed deeply. This matter has been exposed to the sky. Even if you ask your aunt to come, I still say the same thing. I can't help you, you can do it yourself. In her Debru wanted to say something, but was interrupted by a ring. On Joe Taylor's light brain, 3 words flashed: Commander. Joe Taylor kicked in her Debru away, looked at him deeply, took a deep breath, and then connected the video. Commander, the chief of the Public Security Department, Joe Taylor, reports to you. The commander with white hair and a youthful face did not give Joe Taylor any face. Even though the Star Network was across. He pointed at the tip of Joe Taylor's nose and cursed. Joe Taylor felt that the face he had earned for half a lifetime was gone at this moment. But it was his nephew who caused the trouble. He could do nothing but bow his head and listen to the lecture. At that moment, Joe Taylor finally made a choice between himself and his nephew. So, when the commander asked him to expel the worm, in Debru, from the Public Security Department to appease the public anger, although Joe Taylor was reluctant, he still closed his eyes and slowly uttered yes. The word yes uttered from Joe Taylor's mouth became the last straw that overwhelmed in Debru. Joe Taylor and his wife, Mrs. Debru, had no children, and he regarded his nephew in Debru as his own child since he was a child. Debru had a bad temper and was easily influenced by others. He was often instigated to do stupid things. In the past, Joe Taylor always took things seriously and put them down lightly. Debru always thought that this time would be the same as before. Unexpectedly, he had a wall this time. A small colonel actually had the support of the marshal's wife. A fight in which the other party was not in the right turned into an incident of violent law enforcement by him. He was also exposed and finally brought to the commander. Even his uncle, who loved him the most, agreed without hesitation that the commander would throw him out to appease the public anger. Debru knew that he was finished. His body collapsed on the ground, his eyes were empty, as if he had no soul. Joe Taylor hung up the video and looked at Debru with a bit of reluctance in his eyes. But this reluctance only lasted for a few seconds. A few seconds later, Joe Taylor finally turned around and left his office, leaving Debru far behind. He took the investigation report from his assistant, flipped through it, put his clothes in order, took a deep breath, pushed open the door of the Capital Star Public Security Bureau, and smiled at the reporters. Joe Taylor was able to sit in the position of the director of the Public Security Bureau, so he must have some ability. Facing the endless questions from the reporters, he did not show any impatience at all, and neatly avoided all the language traps, explained the course of events with a slight bias, and evaded the main issue by taking the responsibility of lax management on behalf of the Public Security Bureau, and threw the blame on Debru and Cao Soon, who asked him to do something. In order to regain the goodwill of the masses, this guy also faced the camera and said seriously, "The sheriff's office is a public servant of the residents of the Alliance and is subject to the supervision of the residents of the Alliance. I am deeply saddened and regretful that such violent law enforcement has occurred. As the director of the sheriff's office, I should bear all the responsibility. I am here to say sorry to all the victims. I am willing to donate all my income this year to provide certain financial compensation to the victims. Now, on behalf of the sheriff's office, I will read out the results of the handling of the violent law enforcement incident of Debru. First, based on the fact that Debru's violent law enforcement is established, the Capital Star Sheriff's Office hereby announces that Debru will be dismissed from all public positions and will never be hired again. Even the old fox Tang Fan said while watching the live broadcast, Joe Taylor's official tone is very good. Even if I stand in Joe Taylor's position, I may not be able to do better than him. Especially when the person involved has a close relationship with me. After all, he protects his calf. Because the incident involving Debru was too much of a fuss, Tang Fan's street fight was left unresolved. This result was somewhat beyond Tang Fan's expectations. However, it was also good. He now had enough time and energy to continue investigating Anna Smith and her baby Titan. Chapter 208 Suspicion. Ideals are beautiful, but reality is cruel. Tang Fan was well prepared, but before he even walked out of the door, Joe Taylor came to apologize and offer his warmth. If that was all, Tang Fan would definitely reply, "We are not familiar with each other," and slam the door and leave. But with the two of them following the media reporters, it was inappropriate for Tang Fan to do this. It was totally inconsistent with his straightforward personality. In order to maintain his personality, he had to pretend, right? Especially since Director Taylor had just gained a lot of goodwill in the media with his responsible personality. Facing the reporters' guns and cannons, if he really dared to slam the door, the trolls on Starnet would have sprayed him to death. Remarks like "people have sincerely admitted their mistakes, but you still don't appreciate it, it's really unreasonable" would have swallowed him up. Reasonable things would become unreasonable. Nothing is more terrible than moral kidnapping. So Tang Fan didn't slam the door, but told Joe Taylor very sincerely, "I was also wrong in this matter. This was the first time the sheriff's office came to my house, and I didn't know they would need to see the arrest warrant and documents. Next time I will definitely learn from my experience and not cause trouble for them. There is no need to apologize. Director Joe, please restrain your nephew more in the future and don't do it again next time." After saying that, Tang Fan patted his head, as if he suddenly realized something, and said, "How could I forget? Director Taylor has already dismissed your nephew from all public positions on behalf of the sheriff's office. Mr. Debru is no longer under Director Joe's jurisdiction." Joe Taylor's face turned blue when he said this. Tang Fan didn't seem to realize what he said, and he was so angry that he trembled all over. After signaling the reporters to stop filming, Joe Taylor took a deep look at Tang Fan and sneered, "I have learned a lesson from Colonel Tang's power." Tang Fan pretended to be confused and said, "What does Director Cao mean?" I don't quite understand it. Joe Taylor took a deep look at Tang Gang, said nothing, and left with the reporters. Looking at the backs of the group of people going away, Tang Gang's mouth curled up. He would not take such a dumb loss. The interview ended in vain, and the feud between Tang Gang and Joe Taylor was completely settled. As long as Tang Gang walked out of the hotel room, there would be countless tales behind him. But Tang Gang, who was inconvenient to move, had no intention of regretting it at all. A great man once said, "Fighting against the sky is endless fun, fighting against the earth is endless fun, and fighting against people is endless fun." Tang Gang is now immersed in the fun of fighting with people and can't extricate himself. What if there are many tails? It's not like they can't be shaken off. Colonel Tang is so confident. After all, he has the strength to be confident. With the help of the spy, within 2 days, he had figured out Anna Smith's house full of traps. By the way, he also took a 360-degree all-round photo of the sleeping Titan in Anna Smith's room. Then, he sent the photos he took to Mr. Lee Banksha through an intermediary. Mr. Lee Banksha looked at the photos carefully, even using a magnifying glass. Mr. Lee Banksha spent a whole afternoon looking at more than 10 photos. When Mr. Lee Banksha looked up from the photos, his face became particularly ugly. He immediately called Qin Yi and Tang Fan. Tang Fan didn't understand what was going on, but as a professional, Qin Yi reacted. When he saw the areas circled by Mr. Lee Banksha, he subconsciously analyzed, from the color and texture, this layer of gray-black stuff doesn't look like skin. Mr. Lee Banksha nodded. Tang Fan's body trembled, as if he had thought of something. He picked up the photos and looked at them carefully, then quickly opened his light brain and searched. Can you analyze? Is the Field family up to something again? Old Master Lee Banksha shook his head. Kenya was thinking, and Tang Fan's slender wrist had already stretched out. Her optical computer was placed in front of Qin Yi, and a photo of a white and tender baby came into Qin Yi's eyes. Looking at the title next to a genius baby appears, Kenya took a breath and asked in disbelief, "Is this Titan Smith?" Old Master Lee Banksha nodded. "According to my analysis, this layer of gray-black stuff is very similar to the exoskeleton of the sheath beetle." Tang Fan and Qin Yi looked at each other. Their expressions were a little solemn. Qin Yi pursed her lips. "Afan, the teacher needs someone to help, so I won't go back. Please inform the marshal's wife." Tang Fan nodded. "Okay. Is there anything else you need me to do?" Qin Yi raised her eyebrows. "Book a room for me." Tang Fan glanced at her. "Okay. What's the next step?" "Prepare a studio." Old man Lee Banksha thought for a while. "No need. I would rather go to the Savage Star region than stay in the Capital Star. The treatment here is in the final stage, and there will be 3 days at most." Tang Fan pursed his lips. "Then I'll arrange it now." Old man Lee Banksha nodded and watched Tang Fan leave. After Tang Fan's back disappeared at the end of the crowd, Qin Yi slowly spoke. "Teacher, I'm worried." Old Master Lee Banksha rubbed his temples and shook his head. "Instead of worrying about it, you might as well think about how to detect the genetic defects of the fetus more simply, conveniently and quickly, and strangle this inhumane behavior in the cradle." Qin Yi took a deep breath. "I know. But I suspect that Afan should be worried about the same problem. No one wants to become a monster that is neither human nor ghost, even if he is as strong as Tang Fan." Old Master Lee Banksha sighed. "Afan has a physical examination every year. According to the results of the physical examination, no obvious genetic problems were found. But this does not guarantee that she will not have any problems in the future. After all, the child named Titan did not have any abnormalities when he was just born." Kenya knew all this in her heart. But when she heard what Old Master Lee Banksha said, her heart was still sour. This can be considered a genetic disease. If it's a disease, it can be conquered. Old man Lee Banksha sighed. "And those who are good at genetic research are basically from the field department. We still have a long way to go to overcome this problem." Kenya looked at the crowd outside the window and clenched her fists. "No matter how long the road is, we will take it step by step. I am willing to go on step by step, even if it means overcoming all obstacles." Old man Lee Banksha patted her on the shoulder and said earnestly, "No one is born a bad embryo. The pharmacists of the field department are not unaware of the alliance laws and pharmacist codes. But people's curiosity and desires are endless. They did not tie up the beast in their hearts, allowing it to break through the shackles of morality and become what it is now. I have no objection to you taking this path. But I hope that no matter how far you go, you can stick to your bottom line and be a pharmacist with a clear conscience." Chapter 209 Back to School. Old Master Li Bangsha was not tall, but when he said this, his image immediately became tall and majestic. Qin Yu nodded heavily. I will follow the teacher's teachings. Old Master Li Bangsha patted her shoulder. If you want to do a good job in genetic research, you have to deal with the field department, change your identity, and learn again. Tao Bixi from the Sumerian star field is a good choice. It just so happens that the registration for the Alliance Military Academy, where she is not closed yet. Qin Yu narrowed her eyes. You want me to study in the advanced college again? Studying in the advanced college again is not 7 days, not 7 months, but 7 years. 7 years is enough for Tang Fan to open mecha factories all over the Alliance. In 7 years, a newborn baby can also enter the elementary school department. But she has to throw her most beautiful years into school and repeat her studies. Old Master Li Bangsha raised his eyebrows. Relearning and consolidating the foundation, isn't it good? The corners of Qin Yu's mouth twitched, and for a moment, she didn't want to talk to Old Master Li Bangsha. As if he didn't sense her emotions, Mr. Li Bangsha continued to nag. Although I don't think much of people from the field department, there is no distinction between high and low in academics. The subject of genetics, if used in the right way, can also benefit many people. I am very optimistic about you. Don't let me down. Qin Yu is not one of those young girls who have never seen the world and will be excited by a word of encouragement. She does not have Mr. Li Bangsha's fraternity and ambition to help the world. But as Mr. Li Bangsha said, there is no distinction between high and low in academics. The subject of genetics, if used in the right way, can save people. She doesn't need to benefit many people, but she can't just watch the woman who has gone through her entire adolescence with her and paid for her 3 meals a day for 7 years die. But what place did Mr. Li Bangsha find for her? The Alliance Military Academy. Delicious food is impossible in this life. But without delicious food, what fun is there in her life? Can't we change places? Elder Li Bangsha rubbed his temples and patiently explained to Qin Yi. The personalities of the field department are mostly hard to describe, especially the men. I can only choose a female teacher for you. There are few female pharmacists, and even fewer from the field department. You and Tang Fan have appeared on the Capital Star, and it won't work with Anna Smith. There's a Baiwanj in the Cheyenne-Soho Star region. But that is the territory of the field family, and I can't let you take the risk. After thinking about it, Tao Bixi is the best choice. Moreover, the Blackwater Army base is right next to the Alliance Military Academy, which is equivalent to the back garden of your future father-in-law. If you want to eat something, your father can't get it for you. Qin Yu curled her lips. Just the food of the Blackwater Army? It's only slightly better than the Blue Sea Mecha Academy. Elder Li Bangsha curled his lips and couldn't help but say, then why don't you just take Tang Fan with you? Qin Yu heard it. Her eyes lit up. Is it okay? It's only 7 years. If she has Tang Fan and delicious food to keep her company, she should, maybe, have the chance to survive. Old Master Li Bangsha gave Qin Yu a compliment, but he didn't expect Qin Yu to leave with it. Instead, he was so angry that he pointed at Qin Yu's nose and couldn't speak. Qin Yu only then realized the real meaning of what Old Master Li Bangsha said, and stuck out her tongue in embarrassment. What's that old saying? Of all things in the world, only love and food should not be let down. I just ate a little too much? It's not a big problem. Old Master Li Bangsha's mouth twitched. I haven't heard of this old saying. I only heard that men have to pay for their food, and women have to be fooled for their food. Qin Yu, we can't talk anymore today. In fact, Tang Fan knows Qin Yu better than Old Master Li Bangsha. Qin Yu only mentioned that she wanted to study at the Alliance Military Academy, and Tang Fan immediately understood what Qin Yu meant and said that she also wanted to continue to study her mecha driving skills. Qin Yu was so moved that her eyes were filled with tears. She agreed without hesitation. The next second, she assigned this matter to her father, Comrade Qin Mian. As the most experienced old fox in the Blackwater Army, Comrade Qin Mian was very efficient in doing things. Soon, 2 optical computers with the latest firewalls installed and 2 brand new identity information were sent from the Blackwater Army base to the hands of Miss Qin Yu in the Savage Galaxy. As an old fox, Qin Mian knew that lying at the highest level was 7 points true and 3 points false. He arranged the identities of orphans for Qin Yu and Tang Fan. There was an orphanage in Lingsu Star region, but it was destroyed by mutant creatures 3 years ago. There were only a few surviving orphans. This was the result of the orphanage's Dean Yin's hard work and the timely arrival of the Blackwater Army for reinforcement. Because the orphanage was destroyed and there were not many surviving orphans, the Blackwater Army simply arranged them directly to the logistics of the army, working part-time and studying part-time to support themselves. What's more coincidental is that Director Yin of the orphanage died at the beginning of this year due to overwork and relapse of old illness. In other words, as long as Qin Mian, the second in command, insists, no one can say that the identity information of Qin Yi and Tang Fan is wrong. Miss Qin Yi became a child with a talent for pharmacy, Yin Yulan, who studied pharmacy knowledge with a Blackwater Army pharmacist for 3 years. Miss Tang Fan became a child with a physical talent and aspired to become a mecha pilot, Yin Chu. In order to prevent others from recognizing Qin Yi, Qin Mian specially changed Qin Yi's hairstyle to a rustic one. Because Miss Tang Fan is famous throughout the alliance, she not only has to change her name, but also her appearance. Comrade Qin Mian personally took charge, listened to Tang Fan's personal opinions, used some special materials, and gave Tang Fan a semi-permanent makeup. The changes are not very big, just a little thicker eyebrows, a little thicker lips, a little wider jaw, that's all. A little east, a little west, Tang Fan's beauty value has dropped more than a little. In other words, she changed from a beautiful and exquisite lady who was suitable for both men and women to an ordinary tomboy, that's all. However, Tang Fan herself was quite satisfied. Looking at the face in the mirror that was so ordinary that even her own father might not be able to recognize her, Tang Fan felt very novel. If she had this skill, why would she have to work so hard during those days on the Red Iron Star? However, just because she couldn't do it before doesn't mean she won't do it in the future. Tang Fan turned her head, pointed at her face, and raised her index finger to Qin Yi. Qin Yi bit her lower lip, shook her head, and raised 2 fingers. After thinking about it, she added another one. Tang Fan silently mouthed, "Deal." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210, Gambling Habits Remain. How could the 2 little girls' tricks be hidden from the old fox Qin Mian? He just didn't want to ruin a little fun between the little girls, so he pretended not to notice. Who would have thought that his unique makeup skills would only be worth 3 meals to his daughter? Qin Mian couldn't be angry, nor could he laugh. But which parent in the world could be more stubborn than his own child? Qin Yu was originally a spoiled child, pulling Qin Mian's sleeves and twisting, saying nice things without asking for money. Although Comrade Qin Mian felt sorry for selling his unique skills at a low price, he still agreed to teach Tang Fan, for 3 days. 3 meals in exchange for 3 days of makeup learning. Tang Fan made a lot of money from this deal. She had a good memory, a strong concentration, and a solid foundation in art and super hands-on ability. 3 days was enough for her to learn a lot. She didn't ask to pretend to be someone like Qin Mian, but she should be able to change her look so that even Tang Gang, her father, couldn't recognize her. In return, Tang Fan invited Qin Mian to cook for Qin Yi. It is said that a dragon gives birth to a dragon, a phoenix gives birth to a phoenix, and a mouse's son will dig holes. The reason why Qin Yi can become an excellent pharmacist is all thanks to her mother Tan Juan's support from innate genes to acquire training. And the reason why Qin Yi can become a standard foodie is inseparable from her father Qin Mian's innate inheritance and acquired feeding. Tang Fan's 3 meals not only completed the deal between her and Qin Yi, but also successfully changed Qin Mian from passively imparting experience to active teaching. This change came too suddenly, making Tang Fan flattered. However, the small goal of changing her look so that even Tang Gang, the father, could not recognize her was easily achieved. In this way, the safety of her and Qin Yi in the Alliance Military Academy is more guaranteed. To perform a full set of plays, the problems of name and appearance have been solved, and Tang Fan and Qin Yi have to experience the life of orphans. This was not a difficult task for Tang Fan, who had lived on the Red Iron Star for 15 years, but it was not so easy for Qin Yi, a little girl who had been well protected since childhood. Qin Mian was reluctant to let his daughter suffer, so he could only make an exception and arrange Yin Yulan to be a pharmacist apprentice who was relatively familiar to her. In this way, Qin Yi adapted very reluctantly. Qin Mian wanted to stop it, but Qin Yi was easy to talk to about other things, but she was particularly persistent in this matter. Qin Mian couldn't persuade his daughter, so he could only watch her toss with heartache. Fortunately, after half a month of adaptation, Ken Yi had more or less become a little bit. As the military advisor of the Blackwater Army, Ken Mian still had a certain influence. He specially gave a greeting to the Sumerian Star region, which should be able to play a role. Unfortunately, the Alliance Military Academy is not the Blue Sea Mecha Academy, and it is not a monolithic entity. Tang Fan really has no idea how much this will play. But things have come to this point, and she can only take it one step at a time. After changing to a smaller space buckle and installing the personal belongings that Ken Mian specially prepared for them, Tang Fan rejected the mecha provided by Ken Mian and found a second-hand standard mecha. With these items, Tang Fan protected Ken Yi, took 2 economy class tickets, and embarked on a journey to the Sumerian Starfield. The Sumerian Starfield is located between the Blackwater Army Base and the capital star, and is only 3 hours away from the Blackwater Army Base. The starship has added many economy classes. This kind of economy class ticket is very cheap, but the area is also small. The space of 100 meters square is densely packed with chairs. Fortunately, Tang Fan and Ken Yi are not big, so the chairs are not very uncomfortable to sit on, and it is not very difficult. But the strong man next to him, who is 2 meters tall and weighs about 250 kilograms, may be a lot more frustrated. The flight from the Blackwater Army Base to Sumer Star is frequent and dense once a day. A few days before the entrance examination of the Alliance Military Academy, most of the people in the economy class were registered candidates. In other words, most of these people should be their opponents. There were many people looking at them, but not many people took the initiative to talk. Tang Fan and Ken Yi were capable and confident, and they didn't want to join others for warmth. The two looked at each other, tacitly turned on the light brain, opened the study materials, and started reading. Influenced by their actions, a large number of people nearby also began to indulge in learning and couldn't extricate themselves. However, the purpose of Tang Fan and Ken Yi's reading was different from that of most people. The purpose of their hard work in reading was to answer as many questions as possible during the exam. The purpose of Tang Fan and Ken Yi's hard work in reading was to perfectly control the scope of their answers, so that they could answer neither too much nor too little. After all, if they did too much, they might expose themselves, and if they did too little, they might not pass the exam. It was really difficult to grasp this scale. The time of study was always so fleeting. After just reading a book on the star network for a while, the two felt that the speed of the starship was gradually slowing down. As soon as they exited the star network, a sense of weightlessness swept over them. Ken Yi was sitting in economy class for the first time, and she was not mentally prepared and almost flew out. If it weren't for Tang Fan's quick eyes and hands, it would have been a big embarrassment. But even if Tang Fan rescued in time, Ken Yi's forehead still hit the back of the chair in front of her, attracting the unreserved ridicule of a man next to her. Yin Yulan was thin-skinned, grabbed Yin Chu's collar, hid behind her and dared not see anyone, but she didn't know that her ears exposed outside had betrayed her, and her face was very red. Yin Chu protected Yin Yulan with one hand, and her sharp eyes swept to those men. Apologize? The man curled his lips, not only did not apologize, but said, ugly people are more likely to do bad things. This sentence really annoyed Yin Chu. You are asking for a beating. The man looked Yin Chu up and down, and said, just you, is this, being looked down upon? But does Yin Chu care? We won't know who wins or loses until we fight. If you win, we two sisters will listen to your instructions during the exam. If you lose, you have to apologize to my sister properly. The man curled his lips. I wouldn't want the looks of you two even if you gave them to me. How about changing the bet? If I win, your space buckle and the things inside belong to me. If I lose, my space buckle and the things inside belong to you. Yin Chu looked at him coldly and said in a deep voice, I don't care about your space buckle. Let's change the bet. If you win, my space buckle and the things inside belong to me. If you lose, you have to apologize to my sister properly. The man looked at Yin Chu deeply. Okay. Chapter 211, Fame. The two people did not deliberately lower their voices. The tit-for-tat conversation attracted a lot of people's attention. Some people who were looking for fun had already started to shout and make a fuss. But the starship is not a good place for a martial arts competition. I'll wait for you at the port. Yin Chu glared at the man fiercely, protected Yin Yulan, and got off the starship first. The 4 seasons in the Sumerian Starfield are very distinct, and now is the hottest time in the Sumerian Starfield. As soon as she stepped out of the starship, the heat wave hit her face, and Yin Chu couldn't help but frown. She was not worried about herself, but about the delicate Yin Yulan beside her. Fortunately, there was a sycamore tree with a thickness of 2 arms around it by the port. The lush branches and leaves covered a large area of shadow. Yin Chu quickly helped Yin Yulan over. Zhang Yue, a man who was a few steps behind Yin Chu, walked out of the starship but did not see Yin Chu. He could not help but frown. That guy could not have fled without a fight. As soon as he finished speaking, a kind-hearted person pointed to a phoenix tree not far away for him. Under the phoenix tree, the girl he thought fled without a fight was carefully placing the ugly girl who could not bear the weightlessness. Her slender back seemed to be broken by a little wind. This kind of dry stick with no meat dared to provoke him without knowing his own limitations. He is really tired of living. Zhang Yue took out a light energy dagger from the space buckle and tossed it in his hand. When Yin Chu placed Yin Yulan and turned around, he met Zhang Yue's eyes. The cat playing with mouse look made Yin Chu squint. Yin Chu slowly stood up and looked at Zhang Yue. Are you ready? Zhang Yue paused in tossing the dagger and sneered. I should be the one asking you this question. Yin Chu didn't bother with him. Since you are ready, let's get started. As soon as Yin Chu finished speaking, Zhang Yue's light energy dagger attacked her neck. Yin Chu leaned back and dodged the light energy dagger, and then punched Zhang Yue's wrist. It was a simple punch, but it was so powerful that the light energy dagger in Zhang Yue's hand flew out immediately, and his hand drooped down. The next second, Zhang Yue no longer cared about the duel, and directly covered his wrist and screamed. Just as Zhang Yue screamed, Yin Chu had picked up the light energy dagger that flew out, and imitated Zhang Yue and started to toss it. Do you want to continue? Zhang Yue looked at her cold eyes, without any doubt that if he dared to say the word want, the dagger would appear on his chest or neck in the next second. I admit defeat. Yin Chu clicked his tongue. Since you admit defeat, what about her bet? Zhang Yue looked at Yin Chu deeply, and under everyone's attention, he walked step by step towards the girl who was enjoying the cool under the parasol tree, and said reluctantly, I'm sorry. Yin Chu stood behind him and said coldly, we agreed at the beginning that if you lose, you will apologize to my sister in a proper manner. Do you know how to write the 4 words properly? If you don't know, I can teach you. Reluctantly. Yin Chu's voice was a little cold, and Zhang Yue clearly heard the meaning of if you don't obey and apologize properly, don't blame her for being rude. He glanced at his wrist which had already become numb from the pain, pressed his back teeth, put his legs together, bowed 90 degrees, and said earnestly, I'm sorry. Yin Yulan stood up from the ground, patted the dust off his butt, and said softly, it's okay. Yin Chu hooked his slender arm around Yin Yulan's shoulder and said with a click of the tongue, you've suffered so much, but you still haven't learned your lesson. Don't you know that some people like to pick on weak persimmons like you? What did I teach you? Yin Yulan cooperated very well and said, since you have apologized sincerely, I will mercifully forgive you this time. But you have to remember, there will definitely not be a next time. The lines were fierce enough, but unfortunately they didn't match the soft voice of Yin Yulan at all. It didn't sound like he was swearing, but rather like he was reciting lines. Yin Chu tapped Yin Yulan on the forehead and said angrily, you. What can people say about you? Yin Yulan lowered his head and didn't speak. The way he allowed himself to be beaten and scolded made Yin Chu neither angry nor happy. He had no place to vent his anger, so he could only vent it on his classmate Zhang Yue. The light energy dagger, with a sound of wind, was firmly inserted 1 centimeter in front of Zhang Yue's toes. Yin Chu's voice rang out at the right time, with a bit of chill, take your things and get out of here quickly. From now on, if you dare to bully someone again, it will not be a matter of just one hand. Zhang Yue pulled out the light energy dagger, put it back into his space buckle, and asked with gritted teeth, may I ask your names, ladies? Yin Chu sneered, my name is Yin Chu. If you have anything to say, just come to me. Zhang Yue pursed his lips, nodded, turned and left. Yin Chu clapped his hands and shouted to Yin Yulan next to him, why are you still standing there? Let's go. Yin Yulan said and trotted to keep up with Yin Chu. From that moment on, Yin Chu became famous among the candidates. It can even be said that he was notorious. With such a reputation, a vacuum zone was automatically formed around Yin Chu and Yin Yulan. Yin Chu himself was very satisfied with this. As long as he had a fight, he didn't need to act, didn't worry about being exposed, and could concentrate on reading and studying. This deal is super cost effective. The scope of the examination of the Alliance Military Academy is not too large. With the qualifications of Yin Chu and Yin Yulan, they could basically pass it by reading quietly for a day. On the second day after the two of them arrived in the Sumerian star field, Yin Chu and Yin Yulan, who were very well prepared, ushered in their entrance examination. The entrance examination of the Alliance Military Academy is different from that of the Blue Sea Mecha Academy. To be precise, it is much simpler. There are only 2 rounds of entrance examinations in total, written examinations and ability tests. From the time they boarded the starship to the moment before the exam, Yin Chu and Yin Yulan were full of confidence for this exam, but when they walked into the exam room and looked at the written test paper containing 500 questions, the expressions of both Yin Chu and Yin Yulan were not very good. It's not that they couldn't answer, but they were afraid that their answers would be inconsistent and the examiner would find out. So, for the first time in their lives, Yin Chu and Yin Yulan did not hand in the paper in advance, but carefully checked their answers. Yin Chu alone checked it 3 times. The result of looking at 500 questions 3 times was that Yin Chu didn't want to see any type of test paper for a long time. The questionnaires on the Star Network are no exception. Chapter 212 Entrance Examination. Yin Chu felt sick when she saw the test paper, and Yin Yulan was not much better. She was already weak and had to sit in the examination room for 2.5 hours, and her mental strength had to be highly concentrated. After the test, Yin Yulan didn't even have the strength to walk, and Yin Chu couldn't wait for her to come out, so she went into the examination room and carried her out. That scene was really sensational. I thought that with Yin Yulan's performance, even if she was not eliminated, she would be the last one. Who knew that the classmate they didn't like was just called Yin Yulan? Her grades were not high, just 500. However, the total score of the written test was just 500 points. It was too natural to rank first in the written test. In an instant, the bronze player that the onlookers thought was actually a hidden king. Yin Yulan's rustic hairstyle suddenly became less unacceptable. At that moment, the light of wisdom flashed on Yin Yulan, covering up all the flaws. The student Yin Yulan, who was shining with wisdom, was trying to check the ranking list on tiptoe. It's not that she couldn't see the 3 words Yin Yulan at the top of the list, which were enlarged and bolded. She just didn't see the tiny 2 words Yin Chu. Because she was far away and used to looking from the beginning to the end, it was a bit difficult to find. In the end, it was Yin Chu who found herself first. I thought I would be the last one. Unexpectedly, I can still be ranked within the 700th. The candidates of this year are not good. Yin Yulan took a closer look and twitched his mouth. A total of 1,000 people were recruited, and you ranked 698th. You still have the nerve to make a group mockery and say that the candidates of this year are not good? Who gave you the courage? Yin Yulan wanted to say a few words, but thinking about her own personality, she gently pulled Yin Chu's sleeve and whispered, "You, speak less." Yin Chu curled his lips and said nothing. But even so, it has attracted enough attention. Not everyone dares to come out and make a big fuss with a score of 698. Either you have the ability or you are extremely stupid. And Yin Chu seems to have both. Given Yin Chu's bad reputation, no one has come to make trouble for her, but the label of Yin Chu being strong but not smart has been firmly attached. When everyone was labeling Yin Chu, they probably forgot that grades are relative. Among the 7,000 candidates, Yin Chu was able to get a ranking of 698, and she was not as stupid as they imagined. As long as you turn over her test paper, you will find that among the 500 questions, she did not miss any questions related to mechas and starships. This is enough for someone who applied for the mecha driving department. It is no exaggeration to say that when the candidates were discussing and despising Yin Chu had already become the focus of the teachers. Paying attention to potential seedlings in advance is something that every school will do. Yin Chu was worthy of attention, so she was arranged in the number 1 examination room of the mecha driving department. Zhang Yui, who had a fight with a Yin Chu, happened to be in this examination room. His broken wrist had been treated and was no longer a problem. Perhaps the pain had been forgotten after the wound healed. When she saw Yin Chu, there was a bit of provocation in her eyes. Unfortunately, Yin Chu's written test score was relatively low, and she was far behind Zhang Yui. She was much behind Zhang Yui, who had better scores. As long as Yin Chu pretended not to see it, Zhang Yui would not come over to grab her. Yin Chu was very satisfied with this. She was busy. She had no time to deal with such a man who was bored. During the written test, she misjudged the strength of the candidates. She couldn't make the same mistake during the ability test. So, she had to watch more. Knowing the strength of others can control your own ability and keep yourself within a certain level, so that it doesn't look so, against the sky. The ability test of the Alliance Military Academy has always been relatively direct, and it also eliminates the possibility of last-minute cram. The ability test of the mecha driving department is nothing special, just driving a mecha. To be precise, it is a group of 10 people, driving a mecha to attack the moving target in the examination room, and the score is determined by the effective attack score. This is a tradition that has continued for many years, and everyone knows it. Zhang Yue was among the first batch of 10 people. Before getting on the mecha, he specially sent a silent greeting to Yinchu. Regarding Zhang Yue's childish behavior, Yinchu just pretended not to see it. Her behavior of ignoring was overinterpreted by Zhang Yue, and she almost got angry to death. So, as soon as the examiner said the word start, Zhang Yue used a big move. The difficult front flip plus slashing attack action was gorgeous. Yinchu glanced at the expressions of the examiners and expressed deep sympathy for Zhang Yue. Since the Alliance Military Academy has the word military in its name, the style and tone of the school have been set. Compared with the gorgeous style, the fast, ruthless, accurate and steady classmate next to Zhang Yue may be more pleasing. Yinchu expressed deep sympathy to classmate Zhang Yue. Sure enough, the gorgeous style is not suitable for ability tests. In the 10-minute ability test, Zhang Yue only got 10 effective attack points, while the fast, ruthless, accurate and steady classmate next to him scored twice as much as him. After getting off the mecha and looking at the unsatisfactory results on the display screen, Zhang Yue's expression was particularly ugly. On the contrary, the fast, ruthless, accurate and steady classmate next to him turned a deaf ear to the audience's exclamations and cheers, and had a taste of being indifferent to fame and fortune, which successfully attracted the attention of classmate Yinchu. If Yinchu did not remember the score wrong, this classmate's effective attack score should be temporarily ranked first. Classmate Donglei, right. I remember you. Yinchu recalled the classmate's movements and sucked his teeth. Although this classmate's movements are not gorgeous, his ability to control accurately is not bad, and it is difficult to imitate. But these movements are derived from the basic movements of mecha driving, which should not be difficult for her. If she copies this set of movements, will this classmate Donglei sue her for infringement? Yinchu's mind was turning like a revolving lantern, and she did not notice that a new group of candidates had been replaced in the examination room. Fortunately, the examiner's word start successfully awakened her. Maybe Donglei's performance was too good. And there were many people imitating him. However, most of them imitated others superficially, which made the examiners laugh. It seems that the way of imitation is not working. But King Mian, the old fox, has created a violent girl persona for herself, so the score of the ability test cannot be too low. There are 5 examination rooms in the mecha driving department. If you want to be in the top 10 in the grade, you have to ensure the top 2 in the entire examination room. It's really a long way to go. Chapter 213 Test. The character cannot fall. This is the foundation for Yinchu to make a living in the Alliance Military Academy. Since imitation doesn't work, she will take another path. On the basis of Donglei's fast, fierce, accurate and steady, adding the Tang family's ancestral swordsmanship, Yinchu moved her fingers slightly and quickly calculated. No, the Tang family's swordsmanship is too exquisite and not close enough to Yinchu's character. Even Ding Yin has martial arts skills, but his swordsmanship is just ordinary, she must suppress it a little. There are few chopping moves in the basic physical skills, maybe they can be integrated into the operation of the mecha? But can such a simple chopping achieve her goal? The temperature in the examination room is suitable, but Yinchu broke out in a cold sweat. It was not until the 4th group of people got on the mecha that a strong man named Cheng Song grabbed a moving target and prevented it from moving. He directly hit it from the beginning to the end, which made the examiner so angry that he was fuming, causing laughter in the examination room, and Yinchu came back to his senses. She can just do it recklessly. It's not like Cheng Song who destroyed the moving target. After all, she wanted a high score, not to be on the examiner's blacklist and have her score invalidated. But if she could find the best position and shoot from the beginning to the end, her score would be enough to stand out from the crowd. After all, The moving target is controlled by a machine and there are traces to follow. It wouldn't take her too much time to find a position that touches the moving target the most times. The score of 698th place won her a good order of appearance, and she still had a lot of time. Poor grades are sometimes not a bad thing. This allowed her to perfectly seize the opportunity. The best position for the moving target to rise and fall. Although if she stood still, she might not be able to surpass Dong Lei, but if she kept hitting the key points, the gap would not be big. After all, Dong Lei, who temporarily ranked first in the effective points list, is still temporarily ranked first in the effective points list. It should be enough for her to get second place. Afterwards, she can still use the excuse of good luck. It's just too perfect. After determining the battle strategy, Yin Chu was much calmer. She took out a bottle of water from the space button and drank it. She drank half a bottle in one breath. Her bold temperament made the guy next to her curl his lips. Yin Chu, do you still remember that you are a girl? Yin Chu glanced at the guy next to her and asked a question from the bottom of her soul. Who are you? The guy was knocked out by her heart attack. He pointed at her and couldn't say a word for a long time. The little sister behind her couldn't help but laughed. Yang Lin, you have come to this day too. The little brother finally retracted his fingers and turned his head to quarrel with the little sister behind him. You said one thing and I said another. It was so lively. Unfortunately, this has nothing to do with Yin Chu. Compared with quarreling, bickering and gossiping, she is more willing to get to know her future classmates through the operations on the field. However, the little brother named Yang Lin and the little sister named Xiao Xiao who kept bickering with him really talked too much, which completely affected her viewing experience. When Yin Chu observed others, others were also observing her. The reason why no one came forward to disturb her was that they were afraid that the examiner would be disgusted, and secondly, they were afraid of being turned back like Yang Lin. Therefore, Yin Chu watched the ability test for more than an hour expressionlessly amid the bickering between Yang Lin and Xiao Xiao, who were childhood sweethearts, and had a rough estimate and understanding of her future classmates. After all, there was only one group of candidates behind her, and there would not be any big accidents. After entering the cockpit steadily, Yin Chu moved the fuselage and then raised her hand to indicate that she was ready. After all 10 people were ready, the examiner shouted the slogan "Start" without hesitation. Before the words fell, Yin Chu's mecha started moving. The movement of striding forward was regular and inconspicuous. But the place where it stopped was very particular. The kind of particularity that could make Dong Lei, who had always been temporarily ranked first in the effective score list, brighten his eyes. Dong Lei's eyes were more scrutinizing. I wonder if this notorious Yin Chu classmate chose this position intentionally or unintentionally? If someone is intentional, this matter will be fun. I am afraid that many people in the school will have swollen faces. Dong Lei narrowed his eyes and carefully observed Yin Chu. The little girl used the most basic mecha driving movements just like him, and her moves were clean and neat, without any unnecessary movements. But if you look closely, there is a little difference. He has been learning heavy sword since he was a child, and he often uses the piercing technique, and this little girl has a lot of slashing movements. She should have learned knife skills. Each of her strikes is very heavy, and the position is also very clever. It can be seen that she is not a fancy move, but has studied it seriously. Dong Lei is sure that if the enemy in front of her is not a moving target, but a living enemy, more than 80% of them can be killed with one blow. In a way, she and he are the same kind of people. If he goes to the battlefield with the people in this examination room, he will choose to leave his back to her. So, when Yin Chu stepped down from the mecha, Dong Lei walked over decisively and stretched out his hand. Hello. My name is Dong Lei. Yin Chu looked deeply at the classmate in front of him who looked very inconspicuous and could not be found in the crowd, and stretched out his hand. Yin Chu, simple, straightforward, everything is self-explanatory. The two watched the last group of tests side by side, and the result was not surprising. The first place in the valid score list of the first examination room was Dong Lei, and the second place was Yin Chu. Zhang Yui ranked last. However, the chatterbox Yang Lin and Xiao Xiao surprised Yin Chu and occupied the 11th and 15th places in the first examination room. There are 3 classes in the mecha driving department, and each class has 36 students. After counting with fingers, these 2 chatterboxes have a 33% chance of becoming Yin Chu's classmates. Thinking of this, Yin Chu suddenly felt a little headache. There is a saying, good things don't work, but bad things do. Yin Chu's ominous premonition accidentally came true. The 100 people in the first examination room were the elites that the Alliance Military Academy had paid attention to in advance. The top 20 were the elites among the elites. They were all assigned to the first class of the 330th grade of the Mecha Pilot Department. Deng Lei, Yang Lin, Xiao Xiao, all of them became her classmates. Looking at the excitement of Yang Lin and Xiao Xiao, Yin Chu felt that she was overwhelmed. When she got the dormitory number and saw Xiao Xiao's strange yet familiar face at the door, Yin Chu finally understood what a bad fate was. But this was just her personal feeling. When Xiao Xiao saw her, he was so kind that he wanted to show her his heart. In fact, it was not strange to live in the same dormitory with Xiao Xiao. After all, there were only 2 girls in the first class of the 330th grade of the Mecha Pilot Department. No choice. Chapter 214 Idiot. In fact, there are only 8 girls in the entire 330th class of the Mecha Driving Department. Compared with other girls, Xiao Xiao has no other problems except being a bit talkative, so she is considered a good roommate. Of course, this is all later. At this moment, Yin Chu has not yet deeply felt Xiao Xiao's goodness. After looking at the 2-bedroom and 1 living room dormitory in front of him, he discussed with Xiao Xiao to allocate their respective rooms, and Yin Chu hurriedly left with a room card. Looking at Yin Chu's hurried back, Xiao Xiao couldn't help but doubt himself. Is it so difficult to accept living in the same dormitory with me? However, Xiao Xiao's self-doubt has not been confirmed yet. Yin Chu came back. Moreover, there was another person on his back. Xiao Xiao also knew that person Yin Yulan, who ranked first in the written test. Seeing this situation, Xiao Xiao quickly gave up the sofa and patted it. You haven't cleaned your room yet, put it here first. Yin Chu pursed his lips and did not refuse Xiao Xiao's kindness. This made Xiao Xiao feel that Yin Chu hurried out to find Yin Yulan, not because she had a problem with herself. Her mood suddenly brightened up, and she asked hurriedly, what's wrong with her? Is there anything I can help you with? Xiao Xiao had too many questions, and Yin Chu didn't know what to answer first, so she simply didn't answer any of them. She poured a nutrient solution into Yin Yulan, and after waiting for a while, Yin Yulan didn't wake up, so she had to find a physical recovery potion from the space buckle and poured it into Yin Yulan. The value of the physical recovery potion is not low. With the financial strength of Yin Chu and Yin Yulan, it is rare to have such a potion. Therefore, Qin Mian only prepared one for her. Now, she has only been in school for 3 days, and she has used it up. Yin Chu thought about Yin Yulan's physical fitness and felt overwhelmed. Fortunately, the expensive physical recovery potion played its due role. 3 minutes later, Yin Yulan woke up slowly. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Yin Chu with a livid face. She immediately understood what was going on. I'm just too hungry. Yin Chu rolled her eyes silently. Is the nutritional supplement for you to see? Starting tomorrow, you will do morning exercises with me. Yin Yulan let out a cry, and her whole face fell. Xiao Xiao couldn't help but burst out laughing. Yin Yulan then noticed that there was someone standing next to her. The girl had a tall figure, a healthy complexion, and a bright appearance, which made people feel good at first sight. Who is this? How could Yin Chu not know that she was changing the subject? Silently giving Yin Yulan a look that said wait and see how I'll deal with you later, he patiently introduced her. This is my roommate, Xiao Xiao from the Mecha Driving Department. Yin Yulan stretched out her hand and shook it, whispering, hello. After that, he pointed at Yin Yulan and said to Xiao Xiao, this idiot who even forgets to take the nutritional supplement and faints when he's not careful is my childhood friend, Yin Yulan. The only one who dared to call the first place in the written test an idiot and had not been refuted was Yin Chu. However, childhood friends really don't need to be so polite. After all, she and Yang Lin have never been polite to each other. Thinking of this, Xiao Xiao also waved her hand generously. Hello. I've heard of you for a long time, and it's nice to meet you. Heard of you for a long time? When Yin Yulan thought of his grades, a smile appeared on his face. He grabbed Yin Chu's sleeve and said, Kiu, I got 2 first places in the exam. As childhood friends who grew up together, Yin Chu knew what Yin Yulan meant. He glanced at the clean kitchen and patted Yin Yulan's head unhappily. Just wait for me. Then, he turned around and apologized to Xiao Xiao seriously. Sorry, I'm busy looking for that idiot. Please do the cleaning by yourself. Xiao Xiao waved his hand. The dormitory is equipped with a handheld cleaning device. I just need to do it. It's nothing. Yin Chu didn't dwell on it too much and quickly changed the subject. I'm going to make a pot of pumpkin porridge. Do you want to eat some? Yin Chu's words made Xiao stunned. In the interstellar era, eating has become particularly simple. Xiao's family conditions are not bad, but he basically fills his stomach with nutritional supplements and rarely eats original ecological food. After all, there are only a few people who can cook original ecological food, so the price of original ecological food is relatively expensive. I didn't expect that on the first day of living in the Alliance Military Academy, I would receive an invitation from my roommate. This sincerity is too much. However, pumpkin porridge? What is that? Although I don't quite understand, looking at the expectant expression of Yin Yulan, Xiao couldn't help but nodded. Seeing Xiao nodded, Yin Chu calculated the amount and turned to walk into the kitchen. The things in the space buckle were all prepared by Qin Mian for her. Before leaving, she checked it once. There were not many things, most of which were various cheap ingredients. Qin Mian's little thoughts, she understood. His daughter is picky, and bringing anything is better than bringing ingredients to suit his daughter's wishes. However, there are not many people in the entire alliance who can make original ecological food. I want her not to be exposed, and I want Yin Yulan to have a full meal. I'm afraid I can only wrong Yin Yulan to drink more porridge. Pumpkin porridge, replenishing qi, clearing heat and detoxifying, is pretty good. From the space buckle, he pulled out a pocket pumpkin, a specialty of Lingsu Star Domain. The palm-sized pumpkin was yellow and looked like a jade ornament instead of a food ingredient. Seeing Xiao's fiery eyes at the door, Yin Chu's mouth twitched, and he took out another one from the space buckle and handed it over. I'll give it to you. Xiao happily took it, and before he started to play with it, he saw Yin Chu's knife cut a pocket pumpkin, which looked like a jade ornament, and it was peeled and split into two. Xiao quickly put the pocket pumpkin in his hand into the space buckle and put his hands behind his back. Xiao's little action successfully made Yin Yulan laugh, and she said with a smile, the pocket pumpkin is a specialty of our Lingsu Star Domain. In the past, when there were no mutant creatures, 1 nutrient could be exchanged for 1 ton. But now it's not possible. At this point, Yin Yulan's eyes dimmed a little. After hearing this, Xiao lowered his hands from behind his back, walked quickly towards Yin Yulan, and patted her on the shoulder. I heard that the situation has stabilized. Don't worry, it will get better. Yin Yulan nodded and said Yin Chu, who was cutting pumpkin in the kitchen, listened to this conversation and rolled his eyes silently. Miss Qin Yi, you are too immersed in the role. Chapter 215 Roommate. Porridge is a very unique staple food. Among all rice and pasta, only porridge is recognized to have health-preserving effects. Some water, some rice grains, the ingredients should be similar. Why is porridge more nutritious than rice? The key is to cook it just right. When is the best time to cook it? After the porridge is cooked and cooled for a while, a layer of oil will form on it. This is porridge. In other words, the oil in the rice should be boiled out. Almost all ingredients can be put into white porridge. And because white porridge is tasteless, it is easy to set off the taste of the added ingredients. Because Yin Yulan classmate was asking for death, he disliked the nutrition supplement and consumed a lot of physical strength, and fainted. Therefore, Yin Chu planned to make salty pumpkin porridge. Yin Chu took out 2 pots, cooking porridge while steaming pumpkin slices. There is really no technical difficulty in cooking porridge. As long as you are patient, watch the pot slowly, and pay attention to the heat, it will not be too bad. Steaming pumpkin does not require much technical content. When the pumpkin slices are steamed and mashed, put them into the porridge, add some salt, stir clockwise, and wait until the pumpkin and porridge are perfectly blended. The pumpkin porridge is ready. Evenly pour it into 3 large bowls. Yin Chu raised his voice and shouted that it was time to eat. Yin Yulan, who was chatting with Xiao in the living room, immediately jumped off the sofa and rushed to the kitchen. Xiao was stunned. What kind of skill is this? Resurrection when hearing that it's time to eat. However, when Xiao saw the bowl of pumpkin porridge in his hand, he immediately understood it. In the steaming porridge, gold and white blended with each other, and a hint of pumpkin sweetness and a little bit of saltiness intertwined, making people salivate. Yin Yulan didn't even bother to take a spoon. As soon as the porridge was served, he immediately drank it from the mouth of the bowl. While drinking, he stuck out his tongue and panted, like a hot pet dog. Yin Chu took out the spoon and saw Yin Yulan eating in an ugly way. She couldn't help but give her a slap. Yin Yulan smiled at her, took the spoon, and ate one spoonful after another. Yin Ju shook her head and handed the spoon to Xiao Xiao. Don't worry about her, she is like that, when she has food, she doesn't care about anything. Xiao Xiao took the spoon and smiled. Very cute. Yin Ju didn't know whether what Xiao Xiao said was true or just polite, so she simply ignored it and started eating with a spoon. The rice porridge was thick and smooth, with a little sweetness from the pumpkin and the salty and fresh taste of the salt grains, just right. However, the taste is secondary. The most important thing is to nourish the stomach. After all, the pumpkin porridge that is just right for her is not too little for Yin Yulan. But if she makes less, or distributes it unevenly, this girl will complain again. Fortunately, the porridge is easy to digest. Rice paste hangs on the stomach wall and can also form a protective film. It puts a layer of armor on Yin Yulan's stomach, so that she will not overeat and hurt her stomach. Therefore, for a long time, the staple food of the two of them may be an only porridge. However, she will not say it out loud and ask for trouble, for fear that Yin Yulan will miss her porridge. Yin Ju eats very quickly, but it is not ugly. When Yin Yulan put down her bowl, she has almost finished eating. Xiao Xiao still has half a bowl left in her bowl. Seeing that they have finished eating, she quickly pours it into her mouth. That look is really not elegant. Yin Yulan curled her lips and whispered, I won't snatch it from you, why are you in a hurry? Xiao Xiao swallowed the porridge in her mouth without saying a word, but she kept muttering in her heart, the look you stared at my bowl of rice does not mean this. Yin Chu saw through something and did not say anything. He just took the 3 bowls and spoons into the kitchen and put them in the dishwasher. In the living room, Yin Yulan and Xiao Xiao started to chatter again. Yin Yulan was very skilled in conversation. She didn't say anything useful, but she told Xiao Xiao everything from childhood to adulthood. Yin Ju shook her head, walked around the sofa, opened her door, and started cleaning. When she had tidied up the room, the conversation between the two chatterboxes didn't seem to end. She had to shake her head, walked to Yin Yulan, and tapped her forehead. Did you forget that this is my dormitory, not your dormitory? Your dormitory hasn't been cleaned yet. Yin Yulan came to her senses, apologized to Xiao Xiao, took Yin Chu's hand, went to complete the admission procedures, and got the dormitory door card. There are many different people. Not everyone is like Xiao Xiao, who can clean most of the dormitory by himself, and give up the sofa when Yin Chu carries people back. At least, Yin Yulan's roommate wouldn't. Even though the dormitory was equipped with a handheld cleaning device, it was just a matter of walking around, and Yin Yulan's roommate only cleaned her own room. Other places, including public areas such as the living room, kitchen and bathroom, were still the same as before moving in. Seeing this scene, Yin Yulan was furious. As a top student with the highest written test scores and the highest professional scores, Yin Yulan obviously has privileges. After just taking the dormitory manager to visit the dormitory, the school agreed to her application for a dormitory change without any doubt, and arranged her with a senior named Mingling from the second class of the 329th grade of pharmacy. Although the senior sister's name is Mingling, Yin Yulan searched all over the senior sister's body, but couldn't find any Mingling temperament. Her attitude towards Yin Yulan was obviously a bit scrutinizing and alienated. After knowing that Yin Yulan was going to move in, Mingling only made 3 requests. 1. No friends of the opposite sex can be brought back. 2. No one is allowed to stay overnight. 3. After turning off the lights, no noise can be made. These 3 requirements were not too much, and Yin Yulan accepted them without any doubt. Anyway, she only had Yin Chu as a friend in school, and if she had any problems, she could just go to Yin Chu's dormitory downstairs. Next, Yin Yulan shared each other's class schedules with senior sister Minglang, arranged the dormitory cleaning schedule, and the move-in issue was solved happily. Although senior sister Mingling had more rules, her character of not making trouble was much more likable than that weird roommate who relied on not cleaning to intimidate others. Seeing that Yin Yulan accepted it happily, Minglang's expression became much better. He posted the dormitory convention and cleaning schedule on the back of the door, and then went into his room. Yin Chu glanced at the closed door and rubbed his temples. Your roommate is not easy to get along with, so don't offend him. Don't bring anyone back unless necessary, and you can go to my place if you have something to do. If you are too late for duty, just tell me. Yin Chu's rare chattering made Yin Yulan feel warm in his heart. Got it. Let's clean up my room first, okay? Chapter 216 Military Training. Yin Yulan was not very good at changing the subject, but Yin Chu did not make things difficult for her. She obediently took the handheld cleaning device and started cleaning Yin Yulan's bedroom. Yin Yulan was not idle either. When Yin Chu cleaned up a place, she took some things from her own space and put them there, which was a bit like a declaration of sovereignty. But in Yin Chu's opinion, this was not much different from a puppy peeing and occupying a territory. When Yin Yulan finally finished cleaning, this room immediately became full. This was very different from Yin Chu's room, which had nothing but bedding. On the bed sheet with small floral patterns, in addition to pillows and quilts with the same patterns, there were also various star plant and star beast pillows. These things almost occupied most of the bed. On a desk, in addition to various professional books on pharmacy, there were also a dazzling array of star plant and star beast models. The cabinets that ordinary people use to store clothes, shoes and socks were also filled with various star plant and star beast specimens by Yin Yulan. Even on the wall, there were pictures of the living fossil yew, which was Yin Yulan's favorite plant. Looking at the scene in front of him, Yin Chu felt a headache. "Auntie, do you feel that you have been a little obsessed recently?" Yin Yulan glanced at her room and smiled. "Yes, a little. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, it's just a place to sleep." Yin Chu snorted and rubbed his temples. "Then should I also get something to fill my room?" Yin Yulan thought about it and shook his head. "Probably not. We are so poor, how can we afford your favorite mecha? But we can still rent a training room or something." When talking about the training room, the two of them thought of the time at the Blue Sea Mecha Academy, and then laughed tacitly. "The training room is not cheap. You should get up early and come to my place for morning exercises. It's not difficult for you. Just do the first 64 basic physical training twice a day." Isn't this difficult for her? Yin Yulan almost cried out loud. "What if I can't do it?" Yin Chu patted her shoulder and said meaningfully, "For the sake of 3 meals a day, I believe you can do it." Yin Yulan nodded with her shoulders drooped when she heard this. Food is the first necessity of the people. Her owner has said so, so she has to do it even if she can't. The grief-stricken Yin Yulan, thinking about the physical training she is about to face, couldn't help but eat half a bowl more at dinner. It was just a little white porridge. Yin Chu watched her overeating and didn't stop her. Zio, who had eaten 2 meals in a row, felt a little sorry and took the initiative to provide a lot of ingredients. The breakfast of the second day was richer than the dinner of yesterday. The combination of white porridge and 2 side dishes, although it was just a simple dish, the 3 people were still particularly satisfied. Just after breakfast, they received a message from the Academic Affairs Office. The annual military training of the Union Military Academy, which lasts for 1 month, will start at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Please go to the Academic Affairs Office to collect your own school uniforms. Yin Chu and Zio, who have excellent physical fitness, were indifferent to the news of the military training, while Yin Yulan, who is weak and frail, kept wailing for nearly half an hour after seeing the news. Yin Yulan was still sighing until she stood at the gate of the Academic Affairs Office. In the end, it was Yin Chu who helped her get the school uniform and even changed it for her personally. However, the physical fitness of the mecha driving department is different from that of the pharmacy department, and the content arrangement of the military training should be quite different. Yin Chu can only help her here. At 2 o'clock, the assembly whistle sounded on time on the playground. According to their respective departments and majors, Yin Chu and Yin Yulan were forced to separate at both ends of the playground. But when the instructor came out, when they saw the familiar figure on the rostrum, their eyes were still intertwined even though they were separated by half of the playground. The next second, a familiar voice exploded in their ears. "Hello everyone, I am George Blake, your chief instructor during the military training period." She didn't hear a word of what George said later. She was sure that the person on the rostrum was her childhood sweetheart. Yin Yulan had only 2 words in her mind: "It's over." Before coming to the Alliance Military Academy, she always felt that she had forgotten something. Now she remembered that she forgot to say hello to George. George should be very angry. Yin Yulan had countless thoughts in her mind, which made her head lower and lower, and she wished that a crack would appear in the ground on the playground immediately for her to crawl into. George finished his speech and arranged for the instructors to take them away. And he himself could finally concentrate on looking at his childhood sweetheart. His childhood sweetheart had no courage, let alone decision-making ability. Before this incident, any decision she made was made by him after discussing it with him. He was used to this way of getting along and didn't think there was anything wrong with it. But he never expected that such an accident would happen. His childhood sweetheart actually kept silent, changed her appearance behind his back, and came to the Alliance Military Academy to pretend to be a freshman and changed to genetic knowledge. This matter was not a big deal, but George felt particularly uncomfortable because he was not informed. He hurriedly snatched the military training task of the Alliance Military Academy from others and rushed to the Sumerian star field without touching the ground. Fortunately, the girl knew that she was guilty when she saw him. George's expression was a little better. After all, she was his childhood sweetheart, and George knew how much she weighed. Tang Fan was sent to the pharmacy department as an instructor, specifically responsible for the military training of the girls in the pharmacy department. Seeing Tang Fan bring his childhood sweetheart under the shade of the tree and do the simplest training task, George breathed a sigh of relief and strode towards the mecha driving department. Seeing George striding over, Yin-Chu couldn't help but gasp. After eating together for 7 years, she knew what kind of person George was. Proud, conceited, calculating, diligent, responsible, and protective of his children. The one he protected the most was Qin Yi. Qin Yi ran to the Alliance Military Academy with him without saying a word, and started studying pharmacy from scratch without even saying hello to him. George must have been furious. This account would never be attributed to Qin Yi. He who knew the truth but didn't report it would inevitably suffer. The military training tasks of the mecha driving department were originally stronger than those of other departments. With this personal grudge, her life in the next month would not be easy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217 Tired. Yin-Chu knew George very well, but other people didn't know what kind of person Instructor Black was. Because of his face and the surname Black, many girls still had fantasies about him. Seeing him steadily walking towards the Mecha Pilot department, many of them were excited. Even though there were only 10 girls in the Mecha Pilot department, it was enough to make the team chaotic. No one would feel good if the team was in chaos in front of the leader. The instructor in charge of the Mecha Pilot department immediately turned black. Before George Black could say anything, their training task doubled from running 10 laps to running 20 laps. The training task of the Mecha Pilot department was already heavy, and doubling it again would be even more unbearable. 1 lap of the Alliance Military Academy was 1 kilometer. 20 laps was 20 kilometers. Even a pervert like Yin-Chu, whose physical and mental strength was almost S-level, felt that it would take some time, not to mention the other girls. In order to fit in, Yin-Chu had to slow down to the same speed as Xiao. So, this torture was prolonged, and prolonged. She knew that this was George's small revenge for her knowing but not reporting. It didn't seem to have much to do with him, and it didn't hurt his muscles or bones, but it made Yin-Chu very uncomfortable. Especially when other people suffered because of her, the psychological torture was even greater than the physical torture. George was not a petty person. When he was petty, he was not a human being at all. Yin-Chu knew even better that she was the one who was wrong in the first place. In addition, her current status with George was not equal. George wanted to take revenge, and she had no choice but to endure it. Enduring for a month, working hard for a month, and being able to exchange for the forgiveness of so many years of friends, this deal is quite cost-effective. Anyway, in the mecha driving department, women are used as men, and men are used as livestock. It's just basic daily operations. It's good to adapt in advance. Yin-Chu could still bear it. Xiao was able to enter the top 20 in the grade. His physical fitness was not bad either, so he could barely maintain the first echelon. But it was difficult for the remaining girls. The summer sun in Sumer was very dazzling. Even if the school uniforms they wore had a good sunscreen effect, they could not protect the exposed skin. The girls in the mecha driving department all had red skin from the sun. Needless to say, they would definitely have peeling skin when they returned. They looked at their classmates in the pharmacy department under the shade of the trees with envy, wishing they could fall apart. 3 or 5 laps were still okay. By the 7th lap, Donglei, who was at the head of the team, had surpassed Mao Xiaozu, who was at the tail of the team. The moment she was surpassed, Mao Xiaozu was hit hard both physically and mentally. She couldn't help but look at the instructor, her eyes full of pleading. The instructor was not a heartless person. Looking at the pitiful look of the little girl, his heart softened for a moment. But when he glanced behind him, he saw George Blake, who had only indifference and rejection in his eyes. He turned his head with his shoulders slumped helplessly. George Black put his hand against his lips and coughed twice. The instructor's expression changed and his voice rose 8 octaves. Is this the quality of your Union Military Academy? You run so slowly. Have you not eaten? If you were like this on the battlefield, you would have died 10,000 times, men. Haha. Yin-Chu couldn't help but speed up a little. Zio quickly caught up. The boys around them didn't want to be left behind by the two girls, so they all speeded up. The gap widened at once. Yin-Chu knew George's temper, so she picked up the speed and led most of the people to complete the task of running 20 laps without stopping. She ran several laps with them, and sent the lagging girls to the finish line one by one. Then she took a breath and walked slowly. George had some sense of propriety. Yin-Chu had punished himself, so even if he was slightly dissatisfied with the quality of the student's performance, he didn't say much. George turned and left. The instructor, who had been distressed for a long time, quickly blew the whistle and called for the students to disband. 2 fists can't beat 4 hands. After offending a whole profession, he would also be afraid of being put in a sack in the middle of the night and beaten into a paraplegic state. Seeing George pick it up heavily and put it down gently, Yin-Chu finally breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the girls who were lying on the ground and couldn't move, Yin-Chu felt that she still had to take some responsibility. Although she was poor, she said that she could still do the errands such as helping to buy some physical recovery potions in the infirmary. Yin-Chu's expression won some goodwill and successfully narrowed the distance between her and her classmates. I don't know if this is a blessing in disguise. Because of this incomprehensible and heaven-defying operation, Yin-Chu successfully became a demon who was known to everyone in the entire Alliance Military Academy. For a time, the attention of Yin-Chu classmate inexplicably rose by 300 percentage points, and he completely became a celebrity in the Alliance Military Academy. Neither George nor Yin-Chu expected this turn. This is definitely not a good thing for someone who hides his identity. Although George was still angry, he didn't torture her anymore because she had to hide her identity and stay to protect Yin Yulan. With George turning a blind eye, Yin-Chu's subsequent military training was not too difficult. At least, Yin-Chu still had the strength to crawl back to cook for Yin Yulan, who had been cooling off under the shade of the tree for half a day. Of course, this was probably another major reason why George turned a blind eye. After forcing herself to finish cooking the porridge, Yin-Chu really didn't have the strength to raise her hands. Yin Yulan fed her the meal and cleaned up the dishes. When Yin Yulan finished these chores, she had already fallen asleep on the sofa. Looking at Yin-Chu's exhausted appearance, Yin Yulan blushed a little. However, asking her to give up drinking nutritional supplements for 3 meals a day was as difficult as asking her, who was weak and frail, to move Yin-Chu back to bed. People can't be too shameless. People are so tired, it's not easy to order dishes. So, classmate Yin Yulan once again played the ostrich. After taking out the quilt from the bedroom and covering Yin-Chu, he secretly touched the 2 space buckles in his pocket that were full of food, pretending that nothing happened. George secretly asked Tang Fan to stuff food into him. It's better to wait until the military training is over before telling her. Anyway, I can't eat it now. Look, how gentle and considerate she is. She is worthy of being the best girlfriend in the league. Simply, perfect. Chapter 218 Bottleneck. Physical strength is a strange thing. If you use it up today, you will use it up tomorrow. Even if Yin-Chu was so tired that she fell asleep on the sofa, when she woke up the next day, she was still the monster who could run more than 20 laps in the morning and go to the infirmary to buy medicine for people. George's torment is not without benefits. After reaching the limit of the body, there will always be a slight increase in both physical and mental strength. Although it is not very obvious, it will give people a surprise after the accumulation of times. Even Yin-Chu, who has not made a breakthrough for a long time, feels that his bottleneck has a tendency to loosen. Everyone, including Yin-Chu, began to actively cooperate with George's tossing, and George was uncomfortable. The amount of exercise has always been different for different people. Even if everyone in the mecha driving department is a beast with good physical fitness, there are still differences in height, fatness and thinness. This training task was arranged lightly, and Yin-Chu classmate was like nothing happened. He also took the initiative to help others and took the initiative to practice with them for a while. The torment was too severe, and classmate Yin Chu stopped tormenting, but everyone in the Alliance Military Academy looked at him with a cannibalistic eye. It was neither too light nor too heavy, and it didn't seem like tormenting Yin Chu, but rather it seemed like tormenting George himself. He wanted to stop tormenting like this. The beasts of the Mecha driving department were not very happy. George was so angry. Watching the Mecha driving department rushing to be tortured became the greatest joy of this military training. Of course, when it rained, they were taken to different training grounds by their respective instructors, and occasionally they would not see them. But listening to the voices from the Mecha driving department, students from other majors would feel that they were lucky enough. The autumn rain was getting colder, and a few leaves of the green sycamore trees began to turn yellow, and the military training gradually came to an end. Many students in the Mecha driving department had their own breakthroughs, but unfortunately, Yin Chu was not one of them. Although she knew that breaking through the bottleneck would not happen overnight, she was still a little frustrated. George looked at her in such pain, and he was reluctant to continue to argue with her. He slowly walked to Yin Chu and said casually, "The loss of Mecha training is a little greater than physical training. If you feel that you have no place to use your strength, you might as well try it on a Mecha. However, your character needs to be tempered. For short-term Mecha training movements, it is not a big problem for you to do it recklessly. For long-term Mecha driving, it is better to do it in a way that saves effort. Is this a matter of experience?" George has finally had enough of this guy and is going to forgive her? Yin Chu breathed a sigh of relief and thanked George with a smile. Facing Yin Chu's serious thanks, George was a little uncomfortable. She said nothing, waved her hand, and left with all her subordinates. Just like a cloud that floated in and suddenly left. George left just like that, but the impact he left was huge. Especially in the Mecha driving department. The training room of the Alliance Military Academy was rented out in the shortest time. Everyone rushed to train hard before the school started, striving to have a little new breakthrough. And poor people like Yin Chu were a little embarrassed. She still followed the training courses arranged by the instructors, and insisted on exercising at the usual frequency on the playground. She was accompanied by 2 followers. One of them was known to everyone, and was Yin Yulan, who was inseparable from her. The other one was a little unfamiliar to everyone. But there is no such thing as a wall that is impenetrable. That afternoon, Xiao Xiao became famous. It was also at that time that Xiao Xiao's childhood sweetheart Yang Lin joined. Day after day, more and more people joined the team. However, people came and went, and the only ones who persisted were the 3 people at the beginning. Even after the class started. Every morning and evening, the 3 of them never stopped exercising. The body is the capital of the revolution, and strengthening the body is not divided by department. Even though Yin Yulan's physical fitness is indeed not good and can't withstand much exercise. But many times, long-term persistence is more important than the amount of exercise. People who persist often have different reasons, and people who give up often have similar excuses. Although the behavior of the 3 of them is a bit silly in the eyes of others. But they persisted and gained something that others did not. After 1 semester, Yin Yulan's physical fitness, especially her physical strength, has improved by 2 levels. Xiao Xiao's training was not in vain, and she improved by 1 level. Only Yin Chu herself had no way to deal with this solid bottleneck. In order to deal with her own bottleneck, Yin Chu tried every possible way. In the Mecha driving class, this classmate is always the most active one, fighting from class to get out of class, and never complaining of being tired. She is also definitely the most ferocious one in the fighting class. Before others fight each other, they have to consider the gender of the other party. For Yin Chu, this does not exist at all. When she meets classmates who care about gender issues, she will persuade them earnestly, "Will your enemy give up fighting you because of your gender?" This is a bit heartbreaking. What's more heartbreaking is that when boys who care about gender fight with a Yin Chu, the punches they receive will be heavier than those of children who treat them normally. The dual education of body and mind allows them to experience more deeply. The boys in the Mecha driving department finally understood that gender discrimination is not good. Although, for the time being, it is only aimed at Yin Chu. The winter vacation finally came and the expectation of these boys who were oppressed. After the exam, the 2 of them couldn't wait to board the first starship that left the planet Sumer and went to Lingsu Star Region. The moment the starship landed and stepped onto Lingsu Star Region, Yin Yulan almost burst into tears. I finally don't have to drink porridge." Although Yinchu said prosperity, her eyes were full of smiles, and her hands never stopped, and she had already begun to think about what delicious food to make for her. What is it called saying something bad but being upright? Yinchu is like this. However, there is only one such opportunity for indulgence. After this feast, Yinchu resumed his identity as Tang Fan and ran around in the Savage Star region and Blue Star. Not everyone understands the troubles of rich people. Especially for a wealthy person who controls the mecha factory with one hand and the starship factory with the other, and is also a popular female anchor on the internet, the busyness is simply too much. Endless meetings, endless design drawings, piles of plans, piles of budgets, and the urging of countless enthusiastic viewers on the internet. Tang Fan wished that there were 48 hours in a day and that she could grow 3 heads and 6 arms. However, this was not possible. So, she bit the bullet and started to recruit men. Zhao Jingshu and Tang Gang, both parents, were forcibly pulled in by her. One showed her the design drawings, and the other reviewed the budget for her. Tang Fan was relieved. Chapter 219 Shared Rental. When Zhao Jingshu and Tang Gang came, they also brought little Tang Si with them. Little Tang Si looks like Zhao Jingshu, and the only thing similar to Tang Fan is the big almond eyes. The young man has a good physical fitness and is particularly energetic. The Zhao family has been rooted in the Blue Sea Mecha Academy for many years and is familiar with the teachers and students. You tease him for a while, I tease him for a while, and the days pass by like this. But when they arrived in the Savage Star region, when little Tang Si wanted to make a person, not to mention Zhao Jingshu, Tang Gang was a little overwhelmed. Only Tang Fan, who still has a childlike heart, can resist him. After all, a food and a toy every now and then, any child will be moved. But not everyone has the patience to make food and toys for a little baby every day to coax him to play. Zhao Jingshu and Tang Gang, the parents, can't do it either. Because they don't know how to make food at all. And toys? They do have the ability, but they just don't have the time. Adults always have something more important than making toys. They prefer to spend their time on things they are interested in or good at, rather than playing with children or making toys for them. Only Tang Fan, who is still a child, understands the feelings of children and is not tired of it. Seeing this, Zhao Jingshu and Tang Gang simply took over Tang Fan's work and stuffed Tang Si to Tang Fan. They called it cultivating the relationship between siblings. Tang Fan was not annoyed. He took Tang Si and took care of him according to the Alliance parenting manual. In this way, Tang Fan had a little tail. Tang Fan took him with him when he played, took him with him when he ate, took him with him when he worked, and even took him with him to meetings. Slowly, everyone in Tang's Mecha and Starship Foundry knew this little guy well. The boss doted on this baby brother. It was like, he was afraid of dropping him when he held him in his hands, and afraid of melting him when he held him in his mouth. In that way, he cared more about him than his own parents. In the case of loving the house and the dog, the treatment of Tang Si was also rising. Toys were piled up like a mountain, and the child was as fat as a ball. Zhao Jingshu couldn't help covering her face when she saw it, and Tang Gang shook his head when he saw it. It was because the elder sister doted on her younger brother too much that when Tang Fan was about to leave for school, Tang Si cried so hard that anyone who heard it would cry. The sky was dark, the sun and the moon were dim. In the end, Zhao Jingshu coaxed the kid for a long time with the toys and snacks left by Tang Fan. However, when the snacks were finished and the toys were tired, Tang Si turned into a big devil again, crying and looking for his sister. Fortunately, Tang Fan really doted on his younger brother, and the stock of snacks and toys was fully prepared. Even when he arrived in Lingsu Star region, he still took the time to make a batch of snacks and sent them to Tang Si. Of course, it was also because the child had a short memory. Tang Si tossed Zhao Jingshu and Tang Gang for half a month, and finally after he had a new playmate, he forgot about Tang Fan. After this battle, Zhao Jingshu and Tang Gang finally realized how wrong it was to leave their children to others. The saying that you have to do your own things yourself is so damn reasonable. In particular, you can't push your own things to Tang Fan. She won't refuse or anything, but she will accidentally do it too well, and invisibly raise the industry standards, that's all. Even reading, which is something that all people in the Alliance do, will become a little different because of Tang Fan. Even if she changes her identity. At the beginning of the new semester, the parasol trees of the Alliance Military Academy have just sprouted, and the playground is full of students doing morning exercises. Among them, Most of them are the group of physical scums in the pharmacy department who have not passed the minimum physical requirements of the Alliance Military Academy. Their goal is certainly not to become a monster like Yinchu. Their purpose is very simple: to pass the minimum physical requirements of the pharmacy department. Of course, it would be better if they can improve 2 small steps like Yin Yulan. You know, improving 2 small steps can make you sleep peacefully for a whole year. How important is this for the top students who have poor physical strength? Yinchu, Yin Yulan and Xiao Xiao, 3 veterans of the playground exercise, looked at the sea of people on the playground and felt overwhelmed. It is impossible to exercise in such a crowded situation. Instead of wasting time here, why not move to another position? Xiao Xiao's eyes rolled and a plan came to mind. You 2 did well in the exams last semester, you should have scholarships. How about the 3 of us jointly rent a training room? We can coordinate the use time internally. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter if we use it together. Anyway, it doesn't matter to me. What do you 2 think? Yin Chu and Yin Yulan looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Yin Yulan smiled and said, you 2 are in the same class, and the courses are the same. It's easier to crash, so you're getting an advantage. Xiao Xiao shook his head and complained, with your small physique that barely meets the minimum physical fitness requirements, you can only last for 2 hours at most. The rest of the time, that's all for Yin Chu and I. Yin Chu rubbed Yin Yulan's head and took over the conversation. The usual training time for mecha driving is not enough, and it can't be used on the playground. I have long thought about renting a training room. But money is really tight. Old Xiao, your suggestion really hits the nail on the head. If you don't mind, let's practice from time to time in the future. When Xiao Xiao heard this, he was choked by his saliva. He pounded his chest and stamped his feet for a long time before he calmed down. I'm sharing the apartment with you with good intentions, but you actually want to turn me into a human sandbag? Sister, you can't repay kindness with enmity like this. Yin Chu smiled helplessly. What's the connection? I mean, let's try driving a mecha. Xiao Xiao was relieved immediately. Okay. Let's have a match now. Lanlin will be the referee. Yin Chu and Yin Yulan had no objection, and the matter was settled. The school had just started, and there were not many people in the training room. Xiao Xiao went through the formalities in a familiar way, and couldn't wait to pull the 2 partners into their training room. Xiao Xiao has 2 mechas. One is the standard mecha her father bought her when she first came into contact with mechas. The other is a new purple level peak mecha from Tang's Mecha that her father specially prepared for her as a reward for her admission to the Alliance Military Academy. The former is extremely proficient with her, and the latter has superior performance in all aspects. Xiao Xiao is a little difficult to choose. But when she saw that Yin Chu took out an old standard mecha, Xiao Xiao decided to use her own standard mecha. She wanted to give herself and Yin Chu a fair chance to see how big the gap was between the top 20 in her grade and the top 3 in Yin Chu's grade. Chapter 220 Training. Xiao Xiao is a carefree female man. But the moment she took out the mecha, she changed from the inside out. Her body was particularly upright, her expression was particularly serious, and there was a flame of war burning in her pair of eyes. That seriousness was particularly respectable and charming. Yin Chu promised seriously, I will take it seriously and go all out. Xiao Xiao also clenched his fists. Me too, treating every battle as the last one and going all out is the greatest respect for yourself, the mecha, and your opponent. This is the professional cultivation of a mecha pilot and Xiao Xiao's persistence. The 2 people tested each other and then officially launched the attack. Yin Chu has been in contact with mechas for much longer than Xiao Xiao, but the time he has been driving mechas is almost the same as Xiao Xiao, not to mention that mecha driving is not Yin Chu's main business. Therefore, being able to go back and forth and maintain the same level is enough to surprise Yin Yulan. Since she had agreed to take it seriously and go all out, Yin Chu would keep her promise. Although she was on par with Xiao Xiao in mecha driving skills, her understanding and judgment of mechas was far superior to Xiao Xiao's. When Xiao Xiao's attention was still on the moves, Yin Chu had habitually looked for the faults in the opponent's mecha. In her opinion, who knew mechas like the back of her hand, there were only a few faults in standard mechas. Xiao Xiao's mecha was no exception. Yin Chu revealed a small flaw. At the moment when Xiao Xiao rushed towards her, the mecha she was driving slightly moved to the side a few inches, and the mecha hand had already been placed on the neck of Xiao Xiao's mecha. The next second, Xiao Xiao's mecha control system was half broken. This one, there is no way to fight. Xiao got out of the mecha and smiled bitterly. The gap between us is too big. Yin Chu's mecha hand moved away from Xiao's neck, and then jumped off the mecha. Don't be like this. I just took advantage of my familiarity with standard mechas and found a loophole. Xiao rejected Yin Chu's kindness. If you lose, you lose. Don't make excuses for me. According to the instructor, there are no excuses on the battlefield. If you lose, you die. Don't be lucky. That day, the conversation could not go on. Yin Chu cast a look of help at Yin Yulan. The little girl quickly moved over, patted Xiao on the shoulder, and said with a smile, "Don't compare standard mechas with this guy. We both did odd jobs in the logistics department since we were young. She likes to help the group of mecha repairmen in the maintenance department and move mecha parts. The most common contact is standard mechas. Don't look at our mechas that are tattered and second-hand, but they use the best materials and the best parts from our place. It's not unfair to lose to her in standard mechas. Even if the instructor comes to drive the standard mecha, as long as she is given the opportunity, she can knock the instructor over." Xiao looked at Yin Chu in surprise. "You like tinkering with mechas so much? Why don't you choose the mecha casting department?" Yin Chu was lying on the floor, with his hands behind his head, his legs propped up, looking at the roof with a somewhat empty look in his eyes. "I like mecha casting, but it doesn't mean I don't like mecha driving. Mecha materials are so expensive. How long will it take me to save money to make such a part for myself? But the mecha driving department is different. As long as I am strong enough, I can touch the mecha I want to touch. Even if it's only for a short time during class, it is an opportunity that the mecha casting department will never get in a lifetime. Besides, can the salary and social status of a maintenance technician be compared with that of a mecha driver?" Xiao lay down like Yin Chu and asked softly, "If you give up something you like, will you regret it?" Yin Chu was stunned for a moment, then laughed. "I have known since I was a child that I must be responsible for every choice I make. Therefore, when I make a choice, I am very cautious and don't give myself the opportunity to regret. Moreover, I don't need to regret it at all. There is no conflict between liking mecha driving and mecha casting. If you find that you like mecha casting more in the future, then find an opportunity to learn it. Anyway, I am still young and have plenty of time and opportunities." Yin Chu's words were simple and direct, but they shocked Xiao extremely. She turned her head to look at Yin Chu and smiled, "Knowing you may be the luckiest thing in my life." Yin Chu stiffened and said nothing. Yin Yulan rubbed his arms and said with disgust, "Do you two want to do this? It gave me goosebumps all over the floor. You think you have too much time and know where to use it, right? Then get up and do the training quickly. The training room is so expensive, it's not for you to chat." It was the first time for Yin Chu and Xiao to be scolded by a physical scum. The two looked at each other and did the carp flipping action at the same time, and both hands attacked Yin Yulan at the same time. After a while, Yin Yulan surrendered, and laughed so hard under the tickling method, begging for mercy, "Let me go. I won't dare to do it again." After laughing and making trouble, the training that should be done must be done. As George said, the physical energy consumed by mecha training is far greater than that consumed by other training. After a fight, even if it was only for a short while, Yin Chu and Xiao collapsed to the ground after completing the scheduled training plan. "It seems that we must add some mecha exercises to our future training plan." Xiao agreed with Yin Chu's suggestion. "But, forget about a fight. Fighting with violent people like you will often result in death or injury. The cost of repairing a mecha is not cheap, and my family is not rich." Yin Chu laughed dryly. "If you trust me, I can repair it for you for free." Xiao looked at Yin Chu and curled his lips. "Repairing a mecha also requires physical strength. Let's talk about repairing it after you get up from the ground." It was the first time that Yin Chu was despised for overdrawing his physical strength. He felt mixed emotions. "Lanlan, when can you learn how to make a potion to restore your physical strength? I'm so anxious waiting." Yin Yulan rolled her eyes silently. "Don't think that you can bully others just because you have good physical strength. I'm 1 year and 3 months older than you, so I'm your sister." Yin Chu raised the white flag of surrender without any principles. "As long as you can give me a potion to restore your physical strength, I'll call you sister." Yin Yulan immediately became energetic when she heard this. "That's what you said." Yin Chu rolled her eyes and added an additional condition. "It must be quarantine qualified. I'm not a little white mouse in a laboratory, and I don't want 3 no products." Yin Yulan nodded. "It's a deal." Yin Chu, classmate, Are you too immersed in the play and have forgotten what your sister's professional skills are? It's just a potion to restore your physical strength. Sprinkle some water. Chapter 221 Pengkaden. Yin Yulan studied hard for a week and finally made a potion to restore physical strength. The first one was given to Yin Chu, who didn't want to be a guinea pig. Yin Chu didn't even look at it, but poured it directly into his mouth, sipped his lips, and didn't forget to ask, "It's too sweet, change it to orange flavor next time." Yin Yulan attaches great importance to customer evaluation. He replied to Yin Chu's feedback as soon as possible, "Okay, I'll change it to orange flavor next time. Anyway, it's just a change of additives, simple." The conversation between the two sisters made Xiao look sideways. Even if she didn't understand potions, she knew that it was not a simple operation to make a potion to restore physical strength in a week. And Yin Chu actually acted like it should be like this, and asked for a change of flavor without hesitation. Xiao was completely upset. Fortunately, except for the two sisters, no one else knew how to do this. After all, a genius in the pharmacy department, Assistant Professor Lian Yanhei, who now stays at the school to teach, took 11 days from contact to making a potion to restore physical strength. However, Yin Yulan did not break the record. The shortest time to make a physical recovery potion was 5 days, and the academic god of the pharmacy department, the current genetic research tycoon, Professor Tao Bixi Tao. Although Yin Yulan missed the record, she also relied on this magical operation to firmly sit on the throne of the academic tyrant in the pharmacy department and made a name for herself. Yin Yulan did not live up to everyone's expectations of her. With the title of academic tyrant, she could complete all the courses assigned by the teacher as quickly, well and economically as possible. In just 1 month, Yin Yulan mastered the refining methods of 3 basic potions, including physical recovery potions. Basic potions such as physical recovery potions have a wide range of uses, are not difficult, and have good profits. As long as Yin Yulan is willing, she can make a few physical recovery potions every day and bear the rental costs of a training room on her own. But she still rents a training room with Yin Chu and Xiao. Whenever someone asks her why, she will definitely say, "I'm poor." In fact, Yin Yulan is really not rich. Although she also refines some potions every day, part of it offsets the raw materials, and most of it goes into Yin Chu's mouth, and there is very little left. Many people secretly say that Yin Yulan is stupid, taking potions that can be exchanged for credit points to fill the bottomless pit of Yin Chu, the violent woman. But Yin Yulan herself does not think that she has suffered any loss. Especially when she sits at the dining table in Yin Chu's dormitory, looking at the increasingly sumptuous meals, Yin Yulan feels that everything she has paid is worth it. In order to be worthy of these sumptuous meals, Xiao is also working hard. Try to collect all kinds of fresh and low-priced ingredients, try to inquire about the production methods, and try to learn from Yin Chu. Xiao's efforts are fruitful. After a month, she can already make porridge. For this, Xiao was excited for many days. Yin Chu and Yin Yulan were also forced to drink white porridge for 3 days and 3 nights. Even if you eat delicious food for 3 days and 3 nights, you will get tired of it. Even though Yin Chu kept changing the side dishes, Yin Yulan couldn't help but seriously protest to Xiao. In order to divert Xiao's attention, Yin Yulan even proposed to teach Xiao how to make a physical recovery potion. Although Xiao agreed enthusiastically and even dragged Yin Chu along. But when Xiao miscalculated the dosage for the 7th time, accidentally caused an explosion, and burned her hair, she had to admit that she had no talent for pharmacy. On the contrary, Yin Chu, with the assistance of Yin Yulan, actually made a physical recovery potion. Although the effect of that potion was only 1/3 of the efficacy of conventional potions, it had reached the average level of students in the Department of Pharmacy. As soon as the quarantine results came out, Xiao immediately surrounded Yin Chu and looked at it again and again. "You have a talent for mecha driving, forget it. You also have a talent for mecha casting. Now you're also into pharmacy. You say, how come all the good things in this world are taken by you?" Yin Chu lowered his head and smiled. "I just made an unqualified physical recovery potion, and you praise me to the sky. If I really can't get down, I will transfer to the pharmacy department. Will you be responsible for the losses caused?" Xiao thought about it and shook her head. "This responsibility is too great, I can't afford it." Yin Chu patted Xiao on the shoulder and smiled. "That's it? in order to prevent the world from being destroyed and for the peace of the universe. I'd better give up other talents and learn how to drive a mecha. Xiao's mouth twitched when she heard this. Before she could say anything, Yinchu hooked her shoulders and pointed to a place not far away. Whether I have a talent for pharmacy or not, that's still unclear. But that guy, who is able to transfer to another school midway and has the Dean of Studies accompanying him, must have a talent for reincarnation. Xiao looked in the direction indicated by Yinchu. Under the sycamore tree, the Dean of Studies was accompanying a short, fair-skinned, delicate-featured boy, who was slowly walking towards the direction of the pharmacy department. Xiao was not unfamiliar with that boy. That's the president of the Pharmacist Association, the son of President Pengbo, Peng Kaiden. If there are differences in reincarnation skills, this person's talent and skills are enough to make more than 80% of the people in the alliance envious and jealous. Yinchu smiled and said, including you. Xiao nodded calmly, including me. Yin Yulan patted her shoulder and sighed. Envy, jealousy and hatred, his father can't become your father. If you have that time, you might as well use it to learn some knowledge. Yinchu rolled his eyes at her. You just know how to spoil the fun. In addition to your pile of books, do you have any other hobbies? Yin Yulan nodded. Of course. I also like eating. This makes sense. Yinchu was speechless. Seeing Yinchu rolling his eyes at Yin Yulan's words, Xiao couldn't help laughing. The laughter successfully attracted the attention of the Dean and Peng Kaiden. The two people actually walked towards them, or to be more precise, towards Yin Yulan. Hello, Miss Yin Yulan. My name is Peng Kaiden, and I'm a freshman who just transferred to the Department of Pharmacy. It's our first meeting, please take care of me. Smelling the faint, familiar fragrance on Peng Kaiden's body, Yin Yulan couldn't help but glance at Yinchu. Yinchu reached out and patted her head, smiling. Others are greeting you, why are you looking at me? I can still be with you and protect you for the rest of my life, so what? Yin Yulan pulled Yinchu's sleeve, lowered her head, and replied softly in a mosquito-like voice, hello. Chapter 222 Volunteers. Yin Yulan's performance was beyond Peng Kaiden's expectations. He didn't expect that the legendary genius of medicine would be like this. She was so unfashionable, timid, shy, and not good at speaking. Such a girl was not his ideal target, and could only be an alternative plan. Thinking of this, Peng Kaiden couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Sorry to bother you. The familiar smell gradually faded. Yinchu narrowed his eyes and patted Yin Yulan's hand. Yin Yulan slowly loosened his hand holding her sleeve a little bit, but he moved a step towards Yinchu. The mosquito-like humming sound rang again. It's okay. Peng Kaiden simply couldn't accept this kind of behavior of taking politeness seriously. Xiao's laughter point was not high to begin with, and at this moment he couldn't help but lower his head, and his shoulders kept shaking. Yinchu rubbed Yin Yulan's head and sighed. Our Lanlin is a little confused in life. I hope classmate Peng can forgive me. The apology in these words is not as obvious as indulgence, which successfully made Peng Kaiden's evaluation of Yin Yulan lower by a few points. First, this appearance is indeed not up to standard. Second, the buy one get one free deal is not cost effective. The smell on Peng Kaiden gradually dissipated and was almost gone. It's because I don't understand Miss Yin's character and disturb you. It has nothing to do with Miss Yin. Miss Yin successfully distanced him from Yin Yulan, as if the person who rushed to get to know Yin Yulan was not him. The dean looked at Yin Yulan with a bit of coldness. Yin Yulan felt the coldness and took another step towards Yinchu. Peng Kaiden suspected that if he said anything else, or the dean of teaching beside him glared at him, Yin Yulan would hide behind the classmate next to her. Although it's just an alternative plan, the relationship can't be too stiff, right? Peng Kaiden thought about it, found an excuse that he still had to go through the admission procedures, and left with the dean. Yinchu said goodbye to Yin Yulan and continued to walk towards the dormitory. It was just a chance encounter, but the appearance of Peng Kaiden had a huge impact on Yinchu and Yin Yulan. Yin Yulan suddenly became quiet, holding Yinchu's sleeve the whole time, obviously scared by Peng Kaiden who suddenly jumped out. The sudden silence of Yin Yulan made the talkative Xiao very uncomfortable. What Xiao was even more uncomfortable with was the solemn expression of Yinchu. Isn't it just a Mr. Peng? Do you two have to be so serious? Xiao's words successfully brought Yin Yulan back to his senses. She nodded seriously. It's not a big deal. Yinchu rubbed her head, silently comforted her, and said to Xiao with a sullen face, Lan Lan is a slow-tempered person. She has to be a little wary of boys. Mr. Peng suddenly jumped out, and she might have to stay in our dormitory for a few days. Anyway, she slept in Yin Chu's room, not hers. Besides, Yin Yulan usually stays with him, so she doesn't need to sleep for a few hours. Thinking of this, Xiao waved her hand generously. It doesn't matter, stay as long as you want. Yin Chu got the upper hand from Xiao, took Yin Yulan back to the dormitory, placed her in her own room, and prepared delicious food. The ingredients Yin Chu took out were particularly rich, which successfully attracted Xiao's attention. Looking at Xiao's eager eyes, Yin Chu put down the ingredients in his hand and made a pinky promise to her. After Xiao walked in, she smiled and asked, "Want to learn?" Xiao nodded. Yin Chu thought about it, took out 3 eggs from the ingredients, and taught her how to fry eggs step by step. Yin Chu was very patient, and frying eggs was not a difficult task. Xiao learned it in a short while. Her passion for cooking was very easy to ignite. After succeeding once, Xiao was busy experimenting for the second time. Yin Chu didn't say anything, letting her toss around the eggs in her space, staring at her door. It wasn't until Yin Yulan opened the door and walked out, nodded to her, that Yin Chu breathed a sigh of relief. Looking back, the whole person was not well. Yin Yulan followed her gaze and looked over, also a little dumbfounded. "Are we having fried eggs for lunch today?" The name of the dish, fried eggs, successfully awakened Xiao's attention. Looking at the row of fried eggs in front of him, Xiao knew that his old problem had come back again. Xiao's pretty face turned red, and her mouth, which was always eloquent, suddenly became speechless. In the end, it was Yin Chu who took the initiative to stand up and give an idea. "Make another pot of rice, and give some to your childhood sweetheart. I'll find a way to make the rest." Xiao quickly beat the rice and cooked, and took action. After quickly making a pot of rice and putting on several plates of fried eggs, Xiao hurried out the door. When the footsteps could no longer be heard, Yin Chu spoke. "Is it done?" Yin Yulan shook his head. "To be safe, I only contacted the military advisor, Qin Mian." "That's fine. The old fox is so smart, he will definitely find a way to get Mr. Li Bangsha to go to the Sumerian starfield." After the business was done, she still had to deal with the aftermath. Tomato scrambled eggs, loofah scrambled eggs, cucumber egg soup, leek egg dumplings. At noon that day, the sumptuous meal successfully turned into an all-egg meal. Fortunately, Yin Yulan did not dislike it, and Xiao did not dare to dislike it. But Yin Chu never dared to let Xiao enter the kitchen casually again. Just when Xiao was fighting hard for her right to cook, Grandpa Li Bangsha came. Grandpa Li Bangsha brought his first disciple Simon, took the invitation letter of the Pharmacy Exchange Conference, and stepped on the land of Sumer Star region and stationed in the Alliance Military Academy. As a new age student in the Department of Pharmacy, Yin Yulan won a volunteer job. For this, Yin Yulan also suffered ruthless ridicule from Xiao. Yin Yulan was helpless. As a freshman, her appearance was not up to standard. What could she do? In order to get in touch with industry masters like Grandpa Li Bangsha, she has worked hard. What's wrong with volunteers? Volunteers can also meet and talk with industry masters like Grandpa Li Bangsha. Humph. Yin Yulan turned around proudly and went to the arms of Yin Chu, the only classmate who could understand her, to seek comfort. The red vests that the school gave to volunteers were very distinctive, and paired with Yin Yulan's tacky hairstyle, it was simply eye-catching. When Mr. Li Bangsha saw her look for the first time, he almost spit out a mouthful of salty soda. Chapter 223 Exchange Conference. Simon, who was following behind Master Li Bangsha, did not recognize the junior sister he had known for 7 years. Even straight men in pharmacy have straight aesthetics. So, when Master Li Bangsha signaled him to ask for directions from the down-to-earth volunteer girl who had her hands and feet arranged in a proper manner and had a serious face, Simon refused in his heart. But he had no choice but to obey the master's order. Whether he wanted to or not, he could only walk towards the down-to-earth volunteer girl with an awkward but polite smile. "Hello, classmate. Can you tell me how to get to the venue of the Pharmacy Exchange Conference?" Simon just wanted to ask for directions perfunctorily and retreat after getting the answer. Who would have thought that the unfashionable volunteer girl Yin Yulan would tell him seriously, "The venue of the Pharmacy Exchange Conference is a bit far away, and the terrain is complicated. Let me take you there." Simon Ming wanted to refuse, but looking at the sincere eyes of the little girl and thinking about his unfamiliar situation, he had no choice but to lead Yin Yulan towards Mr. Li Bangsha. Mr. Li Bangsha smiled in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face, and pretended to be surprised. This, Simon Ming was about to explain. Yin Yulan had already walked in front of Mr. Li Bangsha, bowed 90 degrees respectfully, and said generously, "Hello, Professor Li. My name is Yin Yulan, and I am a freshman at the Alliance Military Academy. I am very happy to serve you." Mr. Li Bangsha pretended to be enlightened and nodded. "Students Yin Yulan, right. Thank you for your help." Yin Yulan smiled, made a gesture of invitation, walked half a step ahead, and explained to Mr. Li Bangsha and Simon Ming slowly. The Alliance Military Academy is not big, but not small either. It takes a lot of time to walk from the school gate to the venue of the pharmacy exchange conference. As a physically weak person, Yin Yulan had small beads of sweat on the tip of his nose. After walking for a while, under the sunlight, it looked like a few broken diamonds. Seeing this, Mr. Li Bangsha said with a smile, "I'm old and can't walk much. Let's rest for a while before we go." Yin Yulan wiped the sweat from the tip of his nose, ran 2 steps towards the chair under the eaves not far away, wiped it with a tissue, and made a gesture of invitation. Mr. Li Bangsha walked to Yin Yulan with a smile and sat down. Then he patted the seat next to him and smiled at Yin Yulan. "You sit down too." Yin Yulan looked around and found that there was no one and no camera within 10 meters around. He changed his polite and distant look just now and sat down next to Mr. Li Bangsha. This impolite look made Simon Ming stunned. Old Master Li Bangsha didn't bother to explain to Simon Ming. He lowered his head and asked directly, "You went through so much trouble to find me here, and you took the trouble to act out such a drama. What's the point?" Yin Yulan put his hand to his forehead, blocked his mouth, and whispered, "She and I both smelled the unique fragrance of olive field on Peng Kagan, the eldest son of Peng Bo, the president of the Pharmacist Association. Although it was only for a short time and disappeared quickly. But this does not mean that Peng Kagan is not suspicious. It is very likely that he is hiding deeper." Old Master Li Bangsha's expression suddenly became solemn. "This is indeed an important clue. I will have someone follow up, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. You have to remember that you have more important things to do, and you can't lose the big picture because of the small." Yin Yulan nodded, and did not continue to struggle. Instead, he returned to the state when he first met them, slowly introducing the buildings within sight and talking about them. This change was so natural that Simon Ming couldn't help but wonder if the girl's impolite attitude and those ambiguous words just now were his own illusion. However, why is the way this girl and the old man get along so familiar? This meteor-like thought flashed through his mind for less than 2 seconds before Simon Ming dragged it back. His brain automatically flipped out familiar pictures from past memories. His eyes and breathing stagnated at the same time, and he looked at Yin Yulan with disbelief in his eyes. Simon Ming just uttered a sound before he was covered by Old Man Li Bangsha. The rest of the words were blocked back in Simon Ming's stomach. Old Man Li Bangsha frowned and scolded, "You are so old, don't you know what to say and what not to say?" Simon Ming quickly raised his hand to swear, and Old Man Li Bangsha let go of his hand covering his mouth. Simon Ming took a deep breath and looked at Yin Yulan with a very complicated look. Yin Yulan didn't care about his gaze at all. He patted the non-existent dust on his body and led Mr. Li Bangsha and Simon Ming to continue to move forward to the venue. Seeing that they were about to reach the destination, Yin Yulan suddenly stopped. Simon Ming was thinking about something and almost bumped into Mr. Li Bangsha. He looked up blankly and asked in a low voice, "Why did you stop?" Yin Yulan looked at the handsome boy in front of him and pursed his lips. "I happened to meet an acquaintance." Mr. Li Bangsha looked at the acquaintance of Yin Yulan and narrowed his eyes. "What a coincidence. I also know this little classmate." Seeing Simon Ming's confused look, Yin Yulan lowered his head and whispered 3 words quickly, "Peng Kagan." Simon Ming suddenly realized, and when he looked at the boy, there was a little more inquiry in his eyes. You can't talk about people behind their backs in broad daylight. As soon as they started talking, Peng Kagan noticed the 3 of them, especially Old Man Li Bangsha, and walked over quickly. "Professor Li, long time no see." Old Man Li Bangsha chuckled, "The last time we met was when your father was celebrating his 50th birthday, and you kept saying that you were going to the First Alliance Academy. Why, are you following your teacher to attend the Pharmacy Exchange Conference?" Peng Kagan glanced at Yin Yulan and raised his eyebrows. "Didn't classmate Yin tell Professor Li?" I officially transferred to the Alliance Military Academy a few days ago. The next step is to enter Professor Tao's studio to participate in study and research, Old Man Li Bangsha suddenly realized, so that's how it is. Then I have to congratulate Professor Tao on having a beloved disciple. Peng Kai smiled reservedly, glanced at Simon Ming behind Old Man Li Bangsha, frowned. Who is this? Old Man Li Bangsha patted Simon Ming on the shoulder and introduced, this is my poor disciple, Simon Ming. He has graduated for many years, and has not achieved anything. He is not as good as nephew Peng. Peng Kai nodded slightly to Simon Ming as a greeting. Then, as if talking to himself, he murmured, I thought senior sister Qin Yu would come with Professor Li. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224 Close Combat. When the word Qin Yi came out of Peng Kai's mouth, Simon Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help but look at Yin Yulan next to him. However, Yin Yulan lowered her eyebrows and looked thoughtful, as if she didn't notice Peng Kai's words at all. Simon Ming had to admire this little girl, she was really patient. Old Man Li Bangsha moved his body to block Simon Ming's sight, and then slowly opened his mouth. Nowadays are different from the past. There are not many people who can really concentrate on doing experiments. It's rare to meet someone who doesn't like to attend meetings and likes to tinker with experiments. I don't have the nerve to disturb them. So, I picked the most restless one and brought him here. Peng Kai glanced at Old Man Li Bangsha and didn't really believe his explanation. But before he could speak, Simon Ming couldn't wait to jump out. Teacher, you must have said this before we set off. You said that this conference brought together the top talents in pharmacy from all over the Alliance. In addition to exchanges, there will also be a competition-like session. There are only 2 places in the Blue Sea Mecha Academy, and you brought me, a student, which is a very rare opportunity. How come you suddenly changed when you arrived at the venue? Old Master Li Bangsha glanced at him and sneered, if I didn't say this, would you come? Of course. No. But in front of outsiders, you said this, don't I have face? Anyway, in the teacher's heart, the little junior sister is a treasure, and I am just a weed. Old Master Li Bangsha nodded, it's good to have this awareness. The master and apprentice were arguing as if no one was around, and completely forgot about Peng Kai standing next to them. Peng Kai's emotion suddenly came up, and a faint fragrance quietly drifted away from him. Old Master Li Bangsha glanced at Peng Kai very quickly, and some emotions flashed in his eyes. Xiao Yin, thank you for your hard work. The venue is just in front. If you have something to do, you can leave first. This is an obvious order to leave. Yin Yulan heard it, but still said with embarrassment, but, my task is to send the guests to the venue. That stupid but persistent look made Peng Kai's fragrance even stronger. The venue is just in front, I'm standing here, how can I lose someone? Or, classmate Yin Yulan doesn't believe me at all. Peng Kai's voice was a little cold, and his displeasure was evident. Yin Yulan waved his hands repeatedly, I didn't mean that, I just wanted to complete my work. Kiu said that you should do your own work and not cause trouble for others. Peng Kai glanced at the girl in front of him who always said Kiu said, and thought of the girl who was inseparable from her, and the corners of his mouth twitched. How old are you? Why can't you leave your Kiu? Yin Yulan lowered her head and whispered, Kiu and I have agreed to be together forever, together forever. Can you say this casually? There will be ambiguity, okay? Old Master Li Bangsha seemed to have thought of something, patted her shoulder and helped her out. The friendship of youth is indeed precious, cherish it. Yin Yulan's eyes lit up, and she turned her head to look at Old Master Li Bangsha. Professor Li, do you also have good friends who swear to be together forever? Old Master Li Bangsha shook his head, I don't have such good luck as you. Most of the friends I met have drifted away. When you are young, you will always have a group of friends. After growing up, they eventually chose different paths. Although they occasionally care about each other, they will eventually drift apart. I can't explain why, but I tacitly didn't ask the reason. I watched them get married and have children, watched them become rich and prosperous, watched them become successful, while I can only watch my students grow up. Each of them has his own life and his own ideas. It is hard to say whose choice is more correct. But after all, due to some mistakes, they went further and further away. In the end, Probably only their own memories and their own forgetfulness are left. Even if we want to buy osmanthus flowers and carry wine together, it will never be like the youthful travel. Yin Yulan can't understand the nostalgia and regret in the eyes of old man Li Bangsha, but Peng Kayun did not miss it. Looking at the ignorant Yin Yulan, Peng Kayun couldn't help but complain in his heart that fools have good fortune. However, he didn't realize that the old man Li Bangsha was so sentimental. Perhaps he should let the old man contact him more often? Peng Kayun hadn't made up his mind yet, but old man Li Bangsha made a decision first. Since classmate Xiao Yin insists on completing the task, then please trouble my nephew to go to the venue with us first. When we get to the venue, we will have a good chat. Faced with a sincere invitation of old man Li Bangsha, Peng Kayun couldn't say no, so he could only join the team going to the venue. Once Yin Yulan got into the work, she immediately became smarter and introduced the work in accordance with a manual given to them by the school. The various buildings, especially the various aspects of the venue, were introduced clearly, and vividly, which made Peng Kayun's mouth twitch. This girl, although not good at other things, is first class at memorizing books. That's right. Without some skills, you can't sit firmly on the throne of the top student. Peng Kayun rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Student Yin Yulan, I heard that you taught yourself to make a physical recovery potion within 7 days, and the completion rate reached 100%? How did you do it?" Yin Yulan blinked. "Just follow the steps in the book." "I'm stupid. I heard that Professor Tao only took 5 days at the beginning." Peng Kayun, who spent 8.5 days, was speechless. Simon Ming, who took 11 days to get the completion rate to 100%, felt like he was shot in the heart. Mr. Li Bangsha, who had only spent 5.5 days to complete the learning task, calmly took Yin Yulan to discuss the venue, determine the process, and change the topic for them. Seeing that the two of them finally got over the blow, Mr. Li Bangsha stopped talking and let Yin Yulan go after completing the task. Yin Yulan smiled and said goodbye to Mr. Li Bangsha, Simon Ming and Peng Kayun, and then walked slowly towards the gate. Anyway, in this world where looks matter, she has such a tacky image, and no one will look at her more than an old acquaintance like Mr. Li Bangsha. Woman, why bother yourself? Instead of standing together with a beautiful young lady to compare and make up the number, it is better to walk slower and rest for a while. Anyway, her main purpose has been achieved. Chapter 225 White Gale. As a physically weak person, it took Yin Yulan 2 hours to walk from the venue back to the school gate. When she arrived, the port of Sumer had just closed. Of course, no other guests would visit. In other words, today's reception mission was about to end. But Yin Yulan didn't dare to leave without being told to do so. She could only take out an encyclopedia of interstellar plants from her space and flip through it. After a while, she saw Yinju and Xiao walking over with their arms around each other. "Haven't you left yet?" Yin Yulan tightened the book in her hand. "It should be a while." Yinju frowned. "Then I'll wait with you for a while." Yin Yulan tapped the book on her palm and smiled. "It's not an important matter, why waste your time? If you have that time, you might as well make me a delicious meal to comfort me." Xiao had already known the importance of food in Yin Yulan's heart, and was not surprised by her choice. But the others were not aware of this, and the look they gave to Yin Yulan had a different meaning. However, Yinju was different from them. She looked at Yin Yulan deeply, then looked in the direction of the venue, and silently exchanged a look with Yin Yulan. Yin Yulan nodded slightly, and Yinju understood what she meant. She had met Mr. Li Bangsha. And Mr. Li Bangsha meant that they should not waste time on Peng Kayun. For Yin Yulan, food is the most important. And for her, protecting Yin Yulan's safety and successfully sending her to Tao Bixi's door is more important than anything else. Things have to be prioritized. And their rash summoning of Mr. Li Bangsha was obviously a wrong move. Fortunately, they were not discovered. Fortunately, they could stop the loss in time. Yinju rubbed Yin Yulan's head and said with a smile, "Then I will go back and knead the dough and make hand-rolled noodles for you tonight." Yin Yulan shook his head. "I don't want to eat hand-rolled noodles. I want to eat noodles with soybean sauce, the kind with 10 or 8 pieces. Yinju smiled dotingly, said okay, and took Xiao back to the dormitory. Yin Yulan stood at the school gate for another half an hour, and under everyone's envious eyes, he hurried back to find Yinju to ask for noodles with soybean sauce. Yinju is a man of his words. He promised Yin Yulan something, so he naturally had to put it into practice. 10 pieces were lined up in a row. The overcooled noodles were soft and hard, and with a shiny and fragrant soybean sauce, Yin Yulon ate until his belly was round. Xiao was not much better than Yin Yulon, holding his belly and humming. Yin Chu couldn't stand it anymore, and forced the two to go downstairs for a walk to digest the food. After walking around the playground for 2 laps, they felt better. Xiao couldn't sit still. As soon as she had digested a little bit of the food in her stomach, she couldn't stand the slower speed of Yin Yulon and started running. She wanted to pull Yin Chu with her, but Yin Chu only glanced at Yin Yulon and Xiao ran away by herself. Yin Chu estimated the distance between Xiao and them, and guessed that she could not hear the two people's voices, so he whispered, "Did you get in touch?" Yin Yulon nodded. "Not only did we meet, but we also chatted for a while. The old man told us to take care of ourselves, and he would take care of other things." Yin Yulon paused, then said, "What a coincidence, when we were about to arrive at a venue, we ran into that person." I don't know what the old man touched his nerves, the fragrance on his body was so strong. The old man experienced it personally, he should take it to heart. I just don't know how many people like this there are, and how deep they are lurking. Yin Chu shook his head with a wry smile. "You can't think too much about this. The more you think about it, the more uncomfortable you will feel. We have no choice now, we can only work hard, and work harder." Yin Yulon sighed, glanced at Xiao who was gradually approaching, and sat down on the edge of the playground. "You go exercise with Lao Xiao." "I don't want to move." Xiao made a face at Yin Yulon and joked, "What? Are you lazy again?" Yin Yulon rolled his eyes and said unhappily, "I am a sluggish person in the pharmacy department. I finally had enough to eat, but you dragged me out to exercise. Do I have it easy? Do you think everyone is like the animals in your mecha driving department, running more than 10 or 20 laps around the playground without any effort?" Xiao raised his index finger and shook it. "Miss, you are wrong. Not everyone in the mecha driving department is an animal who can run more than 10 or 20 laps around the playground without any effort. There's only one person who can do this, and that is Ukyu." After saying that, Xiao ran away like a gust of wind. Yin Chu sneered and chased after him. After a while, Xiao's laughter and begging for mercy rang out on the playground. "What is, you will not survive if you do evil." Yin Yulon finally saw it today. While lamenting Xiao's stupidity, he recalled his performance today. Then, she faced the sad fact that she had behaved very stupidly today with a wry smile. The grief-stricken Yin Yulon covered her face and didn't want to see anyone until Yin Chu promised to make her 3 puddings as dessert after dinner, and then she reluctantly got up from the ground. After arriving at the dormitory, Yin Chu really made her 3 puddings. However, these 3 puddings were a little more delicate, probably only the size of Yin Chu's thumb. Yin Yulon looked at the small and delicate puddings and just couldn't bear to eat them. She packed them up and put them in the space buckle as evidence. When the summer vacation came, she took them out to show George and the others, so that they would know how badly she was bullied by Yin Chu. In this way, she would not lack delicious food for the whole summer vacation. Yin Yulon is very good at making a big profit with a small investment. Of course, acting is not a problem for her. Even if she was acting out the scenes of knowing nothing except pharmacy knowledge and completing her tasks conscientiously and willing to die for it for 3 days, Yin Yulon did not reveal the slightest flaw. However, in this world where appearance is everything, except for the uniquely discerning old man Li Bangsha, no one else chose her who worked diligently. Therefore, classmate Yin Yulon accidentally finished reading the Encyclopedia of Interstellar Plants in the space buckle. On the 4th day, she changed to an Encyclopedia of Interstellar Animals and successfully attracted the attention of Bai Jiffin, the Dean of the Department of Pharmacy. Although the Encyclopedia of Interstellar Plants is a better version from the Alliance bookstore, the Encyclopedia of Interstellar Animals is more detailed from the Industrial Press. If you don't have it there, you can look for it in the library. A total of 5 books were brought in at that time. I have 1, Professor Tao has 1, and I don't know if the remaining 3 have been borrowed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.